Clive Barker Podcast, audio commentaries.
Thanks to your generous donations to our Kickstarter funding campaign,
Clive Barker Podcast presents Fundraiser 8, Sell.
Welcome. This is episode 297 of the Clive Barker Podcast. We are back doing our A to Z commentaries. Clive Barker's A to Z of horror. K for Killing Joke, and then Interview with the Vampire.
Yes, Interview with the Vampire, which has a rather elongated title. It's actually called Interview with the Vampire, The Vampire Chronicles.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and there was no reason at the time to not believe that they were going to make a series of these movies like they did, like there are with the novels. But
well, they did the Queen of the Damned.
Yeah, and it was direct to video at the time. It felt like a huge dip in quality, like something went wrong, and it just killed it.
Yeah, that was a shame. But then, of course, unfortunately, the actress, the singer that played the actress,
she died in a plane
crash. Died, and it became like a huge thing around the world. But hey, we got Ed and Nina today again, as usual, with our commentary tracks. Yeah. Hi, Ed and Nina. How you guys doing?
Hello.
Hey.
Hello. I was trying to harmonize with you guys.
Bay Area. We're talking to you from San Francisco Bay Area.
All right.
Which we found out Anne Rice and her husband used to live here.
Oh yeah. It was he's called Stan, I think, right?
Wow.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yep. I think she mentioned in an interview. I've been looking at a lot of YouTube stuff about Interview with the Vampire, and I think she mentioned at one point that in a certain way, Stan was kind of like her inspiration for Lestat. As he would do stuff that she didn't feel like she had the motivation or the strength or the initiative to do, and a little bit about that. But she also, it differs a lot from interview to interview. She sometimes says Lestat is me, and then sometimes she says, I thought about Rutger Hauer when I was writing Lestat in the book. So there's all sorts of, writers like to embellish things, come up with their own narratives.
Well, and there was a big controversy during the casting of the film about Tom Cruise, and she was dead set against him playing Lestat.
Oh, yeah, but let's get into the film, and we'll talk about all that.
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead.
I bought it on iTunes. I was just going to rent it, but then I saw they had a vampire, 3-pack, and it had The Lost Boys, an Interview with the Vampire, and the sequel, Queen of the Damned. So
on Blu-ray? All on Blu-ray?
No, it's on iTunes. So I just bought them.
Nice. It's a long movie though. It's just a few seconds over 2 hours. It's 120 minutes.
I got 2 hours and 3 minutes on mine.
Yeah. So we hope you guys listening to this have it all set up at the Geffen logo. Because David Geffen was the producer of this. So we'll do the countdown and we'll get it started on play, and you can synchronize to our commentary. So who wants to do the countdown?
I can.
Ooh. Okay.
I think I haven't done it in a while.
Yeah.
All right. So 3, 2, 1, play.
There we
Here we go.
Geffen. David Geffen.
I heard David Geffen was the one who sent the book to the director and was really pushing to get this made.
Mm-hmm. Neil Jordan. Yeah, he's done some really good movies. And
did he not do The Crying Game?
He did. Yes, he did.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Pretty awesome. A quote from Clive Barker about Anne Rice is that during an interview online, someone asked, how do you celebrate the completion of a novel? Anne Rice told us that she indulges in a giant chocolate bar, and Clive answered, oh, what an innocent pleasure. You would think she would go and drain someone's blood. I usually have more than one thing going at the same time, a novel in the morning, a screenplay in the afternoon. So I see no reason to celebrate. No wild parties or breaking out the champagne. I just started another one.
Oh, wow.
Of course, this was Clive in the 90s. And Interview with the Vampire, the Vampire Chronicles.
This is such a big movie. I mean, it's such a star-studded cast, right? I mean,
I think it was nominated for several Academy Awards and won at least a couple, I believe.
Yep.
They're standing
the books were so popular, I think they were sure that, they could get buttocks in the seats, as they say in the industry.
Yeah.
One of the things, though, that this movie was in, development hell, I believe, for 20 years.
Oh. Wait.
Yeah, almost 20 years.
They bought the rights to the novel, like, right away, but it just took forever to get made.
When did the novel come out?
In the 70s. In the 70s.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
She wrote it in 76, I think.
Okay. Well,
she started writing it in 68.
I think it came out in 74 or something.
Wow. Okay. I had no idea. I was one of those people that read it after the movie came out.
Yeah.
One of the things we found on YouTube was an interview with her publisher, a female publisher that was the one who was like the only one, who wanted to publish it. She took it to lots of places and didn't get anybody except
from NOP, I think it was K-N-O.
I think this is a cool way to kind of introduce the movie. The way that it starts out at the sunset and then zooms into this throng of crowds of people, kind of.
Yeah. Now, in my opinion, because of I haven't seen it in a long time and I'm blind now. But my point is that I believe this is like the POV of Lestat, like flying.
Oh yeah, everybody's kind of looking at him funny too.
And I don't mean Louis. I mean Lestat. Like, in other words, Lestat, here, I'm going to spoil the movie. There's lots of spoilers. We're warning, spoilers.
Well, hopefully they're not watching it for the first time with us.
Right.
Yeah.
But you always got to say that just so it keeps the spoiler police off your back.
We'll wait here. You get caught up and come back.
Yeah. But anyways, it's like, at the end of the movie, of course, Tom Cruise as Lestat, hovers in the car and bites the guy. And, so at the beginning, that POV shot of San Francisco, I think is Lestat hovering and coming to spy on Louis. And he's looking at Louis, and Louis is looking at the interviewer. And so they're, I think Lestat's like up on the roof above them listening with his superpowers.
When he's walking through the people, the camera pans up the building and focuses on Louis looking out the window. So it does look like it's Lestat tracking Louis, and then it cuts
it's
to inside
at the
the
very
room.
least.
Yep. I found my notes here. So the book came out in 76 and was written around 1968.
Wow.
She wrote it in 76 with Rutger Hauer in mind for Lestat, apparently. And then the rights to the novel were optioned by Paramount for $150,000. And at the time,
then, though, right?
And at the time, John Travolta was earmarked to play Lestat. It's weird.
Yeah, the list of actors' names that were associated with it at one time or another, and directors, is amazing. It just, when you think about Rutger Hauer in his prime, when he did Blade Runner, would have made a great Lestat.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that Hitchhiker movie, he's so creepy in that one.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah. And Christian Slater here. I mean, he was not supposed to be Malloy, the journalist. It was supposed to be River Phoenix. Unfortunately, River Phoenix died, and then Christian Slater replaced him.
I think he does a good job.
Yeah. And not only replaced River Phoenix, but donated his salary to Phoenix favorite charities.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. As the book opens, the scene is pretty much the same as in the movie. It's just that in the book, I think it's a little more. The vampire is a little more hammy. He's got like a cape and a black silver, a black silk tie, and he's like super bone white, and it's more looked like the Bela Lugosi vampire.
And he's got green eyes that kind of almost glow and stuff.
Yeah.
I like this movie, but there are a few things about this that kind of the vampire lore that kind of bug me. They're like, they go on with this like, oh, come on, crucifixes and garlic, give me a break. And do you need coffins?
Stakes in the heart.
Yeah, and he's like, do you need coffins? Oh, yes, we need coffins.
Yeah.
That's real.
Yeah, it's like, but they don't explain why. It's like, why are some things important and some things are like, oh, no, that's just superstition.
Right. I would guess that because people are loath to disturb a coffin.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's also because, if you think about it, like, look at all the other vampire movies that we've seen since, of course, Dracula and, of course, Nosferatu and stuff. But every vampire movie pretty much has its own lore. They kind of come and go with the classic stuff. Yeah. But, this is an example of one of those, like, Lost Boys the movie Vamp or, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. There's so many examples where vampires have the lore, where some of it's real, some of it's not. Like the common thing is, what about when there's a Jewish vampire? Are you afraid of the Star of David then?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, the whole coffin business, I mean, Bram Stoker kind of brought it up as a way for the vampire to rest in its own native soil, right? Yeah. That was the thing.
Right.
And then some other lores are like, he needs to be in the coffin, a sealed coffin, because he's undead. And it's when they come up with the whole idea that this is kind of a sickness, and it's like it's an anaerobic sickness, so they need to be asphyxiated in a coffin because oxygen is not good for them. And there's all these sorts of like little lore, explanations that people come up with over the years.
And then is it supernatural or not? It's like it's not really explained in I mean, that's Louis' problem. He can never find a good answer.
Well, Louis doesn't know in this book, although she delves way into it in the other books.
Right.
It's kind of like that sort of retroing too. Like, in other words, when she wrote this first book, she never thought she was going to write more. She didn't have the whole chronicles all mapped out in her head or anything,
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, there was 15 years that she didn't write another book after Interview with the Vampire.
Right. A big long stretch of no Louis, no.
And then the dam broke and the Vampire Chronicles flowed.
Yeah.
And
money.
There's one little lore thing in particular that I hate in this, and that they don't even follow. This thing about if you drink the blood from a dead person, then it'll kill you. But then, like, right in front of him, he kills a rat and squeezes the dead rat into a glass and hands it to him.
Well, it's got to be right after you kill it. You can drink it while it's still warm.
It's still warm. Yeah.
It's fresh.
Well, and also, I would imagine that the blood of a rat would be more like a substitute for human blood, but not necessarily.
Says, like, don't drink the blood after the heart has stopped. And it's like, that rat, his heart stopped as soon as you squished him.
Technically, a heart can beat outside the body for a while. So maybe that's their, little...
My gosh. And then the blood is telepathic to the body that it came out of.
I mean, there's going to be some lore associated with this for sure.
Yeah,
that's like the statue opening its eyes.
She really deep dives, like Queen of the Damned. She goes into it. It has to do with Osiris and Isis.
I like the fact that there is some reference to the classic vampire stuff, like Nosferatu or Dracula. Like, for instance, at one point they make the reference of like, oh, that's fiction. In other words, there ain't no Dracula in Transylvania then, and he's like, oh, a fiction of a demented Irishman.
I think, so Louis here, he starts off as kind of a 25-year-old, rich family plantation owner. And they set it up to show us that he's pretty much sick of life already. It's like the ennui of, the 19th century guy. And he's
and also
he's
his wife and
life.
Child are dead.
Yeah. But in the book, they didn't even have a wife and child. He was actually mourning the death of his brother that he blamed himself for.
Yeah, which isn't even in the movie at all. Like, in other words, if you're going to compare book to movie, that whole segment about the brother and the oratory or whatever he built for him and all that, none of that's in the movie.
Yeah. And
taking up too much time. Like you just say, lost his wife and kid. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
That's more relatable, I guess.
Brother,
otherwise, you have to explain what happened to the brother and all that stuff.
Also, the religious aspect too, I think, would have, like, in other words, this film was made in, recent years, and they don't want to go too much on the religious aspect for an international audience. Too much Christian stuff, I think, might have been another reason, because he was wanting to be a priest,
The brother, yeah.
A Catholic priest, probably.
Yeah, he keeps in the book, and I think it shows a little bit in the movie. Lewis is very interested about the idea of finding out whether or not there is a God. And there's even a scene where he asks, Armand, played by Antonio Banderas,
about is God, there a God or something?
Yeah. When she wrote this, it was about 350 pages in manuscript, and then I think it was Alfred Knopf offered an advance of about $12,000. That's how much she made. They wanted to buy her book, and that started a relationship with her editor, a woman that she worked with for 30 years.
Yeah, the interview we found said 40 years. So
wow, yeah. It was an older interview that I had. But they wanted her to work on the ending, though, because in the original ending of the manuscript, apparently, they went to Paris, him and Claudia, Louis and Claudia. They met other vampires in the theater, in Paris, and lived undeadly happy ever after. But then she decided...
And Kirsten Dunst was cast as the girl.
Yes. But I'm talking about when she was writing the book in the late 60s, early 70s. And then they said, well, the book kind of peters out a little bit. And it's like, can you work on the ending? And then she started working on the ending. And she added another 200 pages. So she made them go to Paris and then make them meet the theater troupe of vampires, and Claudia died, etc. And then Knopf was really pleased. And so this process took between 74 and 76 with revisions. And that was it. That's how the book got published.
Yeah, one of the interesting things that we heard her say about, the interview, the theater troupe in Paris was that she had never heard of Grand Guignol, and that, she just made that up on her own. And then she found out that there was such a thing later, Yeah.
Here is the Faustian kind of dialogue where he's going to tell him, do you really want to die? Have you experienced death enough, or do you want to live?
Yeah, but he's like, he always says, I'll give you the choice that I never had. But the choice is like, well, do you want to die or not?
Right. Yeah, that's the choice.
Yeah, you want to die or you want to live forever? It's like,
he puts them in a position of vulnerability.
Can't I just go back to the way I was before? Nope.
Yeah.
What was the way you lived before?
You mean just be a regular person?
Just miserable?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Like, in other words, he's about to die because he's committing suicide, more or less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I would think would be, okay, if that were the choice you were given, and, you can always die later, so become a vampire and see what that's like. And if you hate it, then die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's harder afterwards.
Yeah.
Go ahead and live 200 years and then...
Now.
Yeah, but go ahead and live 200 years, and if you don't like it, then just go have a sunbath,
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if this is true. I think this is true, but the makeup, they would hang them upside down for like 30 minutes so the veins would bulge in their face.
Oh, geez.
And then they would
I think that was meant only that they did a short amount of that so that the makeup artist could trace the veins with like a pencil, to create the blue veins showing through the white makeup. And then they would be normal again,
Yeah, Brad Pitt said that the shoot was miserable. And he didn't have a lot of fun time. He even talked to David Geffen. Can you get me out of this movie? And I was like, yeah, it's going to cost $40 million to replace you at this point. He's like, okay, I'll do it. But he went on the next year to be in 7 and 2 monkeys, 12 monkeys. So
you shorted them by 10 monkeys.
Yeah, I know. But so he ended up, taking off.
Not my monkeys, not my circus.
Yeah. There's that scene that we just missed there, which was the statue opening its eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Which was also in The Heretic. Exorcist the Blatty one that we watched.
Right.
I think it's meant to just symbolize that once you're a vampire, you see things and you see through a different level of reality.
Right, and I think the one that we saw in The Exorcist, wasn't that a dream?
I think so. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And also, I believe I checked it. I believe this is first as far as who wrote it, came up with the idea of statues that move or whatever with the supernatural abilities, and then Blatty stole it, and put it in Exorcist.
I think it's strange here that that Lestat is kind of a moocher. Right, he never has his own house. He always he's
a pauper. And Louis when he's a rich aristocrat.
And when he's at Louis's house, he calls it our house and our stuff, and
because he bid him. Now he's his ward.
But then when Louis leaves him, he's like he doesn't know he can't make a life for himself. He just can't handle it
because he fell in love with Louis so hard that it ruined him.
Yeah.
In my head canon, I have always thought of the coffin, the need for a coffin as a vampire. It's kind of your acceptance of being undead. It's kind of like your commitment to the new condition that you have, right?
But Louis is definitely not committed.
No, he doesn't really like who he's become. He has all these like qualms of morality and questions of whether or not he's damned to hell,
but not enough to end it. Like Ed was saying, I mean, he's still he will still kill people.
Maybe he will. I mean, though I believe in the more recent books, he's still around.
Yeah, he survived.
Well,
I guess we were talking about that it's a bit like Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. Louis struggles a lot with the morality of being a vampire. He's not comfortable with it ever. He never really is at peace with it.
He never owns it.
Yeah.
This kind of montage of killing all these prostitutes is this stuff is the stuff that really gets to me.
Oh yeah.
They're kind of bleeding them and
just the concept of being a vampire then, unless you're going to just be living on a diet of rats, you're going to have to kill people somewhere, sometime.
Yeah, well, I guess everybody's fantasy would be to be like Dexter, right? Where you just find,
bad people.
Yeah, but in real life it would be hard. I mean, police can't find all the bad people. How are you supposed to?
Well, you're supernatural,
right?
You notice
but then when you're hungry enough, everybody's a bad person.
Right? Yeah. See?
Yeah.
That's where the fine line is.
Full of sinners.
And here's Tandy Newton playing Yvette. She's also been in Westworld recently.
Oh, really? Was she the saloon lady in Westworld?
Let's see. I haven't really seen it.
I've never seen it either. I've never seen the movie or the show.
I've seen the trailers.
I love the movie.
So I know she's
Yul
in it.
Brynner. He's one of my favorite robots.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask about the Stan Winston stuff. Are you familiar with how important, like all the bloodletting, of course, and the scenes, of course, like the big where they finally get sick of Louis and the Kirsten Dunst kills him, slits his throat, makes him drink the blood of somebody dead. All that whole thing. The Stan Winston effects are amazing.
So here's where the rat's already dead, and he's putting the blood into a glass and handing it to him.
But it's fresh. It's fresh.
Yeah, that effect alone.
Look at how dead that rat is. It's not even wiggling or anything.
But making that rat and making it bleed on cue and everything was we found a little thing on that on the behind the scenes on YouTube. And one of the cool things I was going to mention in comparison to Hellraiser, the prosthetic rats, the animatronic rats that Bob Keane had to make for Hellraiser.
Right.
So
right.
Ed,
then they were so real that they had to go before a board and prove that they weren't killing real rats.
Fake. That they were fake.
Yeah.
So Ed, the blood is usually corn syrup, right?
Well, not always. No, I mean,
sometimes
it's one of many different kinds of blood. I mean, I've made blood out of soap. I've made blood out of KY jelly. I mean, it just depends. For liquid blood through tubes, it's usually a thinned down mixture, but not always Caro, because Caro clogs tubes real bad. You know?
Oh, I see. Yeah.
You put water in it, and
methyl cellulose,
and it's so sticky
base.
too. We used that for
Caro
Kung Fu
is
Dragon
very
6.
sticky.
We made ours all out of Caro syrup.
You mentioned that your blood was better in your latter episodes.
Yeah.
Yes. I've had a friend who made a fan film of Hellraiser, Jonathan Q. And there's a scene where someone kills someone in a kitchen and then they're supposed to walk around talking. And he said, I had to redub the scene because all you can hear were the feet sticking and then sticking on the linoleum.
I know. I had that problem in films too, and Dead Pit and stuff like that. That's why I've learned about all the methyl cellulose and all these other formulas for blood, you know. Other things too you mentioned, I remember. I was just listening to a back episode where you, Joe, were talking about making a fan film of Pete's, the musical one, Pete's script for what was it called again?
Songs of Metal and Madness.
Metal and Flesh.
Metal and Flesh.
Yeah,
that would make an awesome fan film.
Yeah,
I know, man. Yeah.
Well, if there was a Hellraiser TV series, which they're supposed to be, right? I mean, something like that would be a great episode.
Yeah, but I mean, I was just talking to Pete, and it's like they're never going to let him. I don't know. I doubt it. I mean, I doubt if they would do that. You know,
well,
some other writer would be hired to do it.
The last interview with Clive made it kind of seem like he's not as excited about the new Hellraiser TV series as he was. So I don't know what's going on with it.
Was that a Phil and Sarah interview? You mean?
Yeah.
I see.
So this takes place in, of course, Louisiana, and it's supposed to be, there's all these like French aristocrats still living there,
going for the walk with the poodle appetizer.
Yeah,
poodles.
Very dissolute.
Have some poodle a la mode.
Yes, a la mode. Oh yeah, he does eat them, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
And then she screams.
Some hot dog, anybody?
Oh.
So the reason why I think Lestat seems to be a pauper, but he mixes in with all these like circles, is that
he actually says that he likes the taste of the aristocrats.
It's his own like charismatic personality. He's like on his big adventure. He represents the 18th century, Enlightenment person, the age of reason, and he doesn't really care about religion or anything like that. He doesn't care so much about the morality of what he does. But Louis is more of a 19th century guy, and he's a Catholic, and
he's rich. He owns a plantation. He's rich. He's filthy rich.
They're almost like a narcissist and an empath.
Yeah.
Yes.
A deadly psychological combination.
He always sees himself as doing the right thing. According to his own like morality, if you can call it.
The ends justifies the means.
Yeah, he's giving Louis life. He's giving him the gift of this great adventure.
Well, this great gift.
Well, and Louis thinks he's doing the right thing, killing her dogs instead of killing her. It's such a messed up way of looking at, He's trying to make the best out of his situation. It was just at the moment of truth.
Like, he was trying to get him to bite her, and at the last moment he wouldn't, and he bit the dog,
Yeah, but and so that was kind of that Dexter principle, like, hey, why don't you just figure out who the evil people are and eat them then if you've got a problem with just eating regular people.
You could go to a prison and just start, cell to cell.
Yeah, right.
I mean, there's two kinds of ways a vampire in real life would act. It would be like either he sees people as something that he's transcended, that are beneath him as food. But there's always like the thing, how could you do that to people? You were a person once.
Yeah.
So wouldn't you be like...
The longer you live, the less you care.
Right. I guess that is true. But definitely that would be this idea of like, what am I doing? These are people just like me. And that's what Louis is going through. Whereas Lestat
that's one of the things I like about all these other movies about vampires too, like Blade and stuff.
Yeah. In Blade, the vampires are all scumbags, and they just make it really easy to hate them.
To hate them.
Yes.
And also the fact that they even would have a concept of like a blood bank of humans like hanging in a warehouse.
Yeah.
You know?
Really, the
Lestat would say there's no sport in that. That's not civilized. There's no sport in that.
Yeah.
And they're so elite. I guess there's so few in the world, you know?
Right. I mean, Lewis himself searches the world for years and years and years before he finds the vampires in Paris.
Yeah.
And then he finds they're disgusting and, you know, kills them all.
Yeah.
But Lestat likes to gain the trust of his victims. He's very into like having relationships with people and other vampires. You know, he doesn't want to just sneak up on people in the dark. You know.
Yeah, like if you
There's
think
no
of
style in that.
If you think about the
He's a
book,
seducer.
really, it's about ships, as the kids say. It's ships, you know,
Right.
about the relationships, you know.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're going to adopt a girl together, and they're going to be like almost like a married couple.
Exactly, like a little
Yeah.
family.
Marriage is in trouble. We better have a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In that way, also, this movie sort of has something for everybody, right? There's that big action scene in Paris, and there's the romance and the gothic vampire horror.
The vampires is very.
I would say being a
Yeah.
vampire opens you up in terms of being an equal opportunity seducer. So being a vampire kind of makes you bisexual.
Yep, and also I think the idea that the blood, you know, the blood of the vampires is metaphor, you know, with the AIDS disease and stuff like that. Like there's all kinds of vampire movies have used blood and, you know, the morality tale and stuff like that as metaphor.
Yeah. Not funny. Jesus Christ. This is not a funny thing that I'm going to say, but one of the things that kind of brought Claudia into the story was that unfortunately Anne Rice's 5 or 6 year old daughter had died
She
at 72
passed away, yeah.
of leukemia. And so that threw Anne into a deep writing phase. And that's when she put the character Claudia in her novel.
Oh.
And that all happened when she was living here in San Francisco.
Yeah. And there's a lot of grief written into this, and you can tell, you know.
And then she's got a son. She now has a adult son, and he lives in the L.A. area and has his own radio station, I understand.
Wow, that's amazing.
And she's been on there, interviewed and stuff.
Yeah. But Kirsten Dunst, I mean, she was amazing in this thing. She was just 11 years old, and, you know.
Yeah, is that a fact? I wanted to find out, what was her age when she was cast in this?
I think she was 11.
And she the way that she could play an adult, you know, trapped in a child's body was just incredible.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, that's amazing.
They were actually considering Natalie Portman and Evan Rachel Wood for the role of Claudia, but they went with Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah, those are all good choices. I think Portman would have been good too.
Yeah, and she was amazing in The Professional.
Yes, I love
as a child.
This marks the end of Lewis's attachment to his old life and the complete, you know, breaking and becoming like truly an undead, more underground vampire.
Yeah, you kind of wonder where, you know, after this point, where does he get his money? Right? He still wears fancy suits even in the present day. You know, walks around going to movie theaters and stuff like that. What life has he set up for himself to be able to?
Well, he does. They do say he's from Paris and that they're Creole. You know, their family is originally from Paris.
Yeah.
So that must mean that they have property or money in Europe somewhere. You know.
But he'd have to be like Highlander. He'd have to, you know, create multiple lives for himself and.
Oh, sure.
You know.
Absolutely. And I would think also that, you know, if a vampire, like I'm a fan, you know, of all kinds of other vampire stories. And many times vampires will just rob their victims. Like they'll pick a rich person and pick their pocket or whatever, just, you know, for the money for the night or whatever.
Yeah.
So, you know, a street vampire can always get by, I'm sure, you know.
Right. As long as they have a place to go before morning.
during the night. Yeah. I mean, during the day. Yeah. part of the story.
Here's Tom Cruise as Lestat is like, God damn it, you just messed everything up.
Yeah, and it's funny sometimes.
Yeah, we had a good place to sleep.
Yeah,
you want us to sleep in an open field?
Revolting, starting the place on fire.
And sometimes he calls him Louis, and sometimes he calls him Louis.
Yeah, it's like an endearing name, I guess.
Yeah.
So they end up in the cemetery.
Yeah.
But I like the mess. The words that Lestat says to him. You want us to sleep in a field, in an open field?
Yeah.
Like a commoner.
So it's
or
weird.
Just when the sun comes up, what are you going to do?
So why did Louis pass out? Right. I mean, he just woke up in the cemetery.
He's overcome with smoke and grief, and I don't know.
Why don't he's a vampire though?
He took a nap.
Well, he must have reached some sort of, crescendo with burning his own property down and having to flee, and that there might have been like a crowd of pitchforks and torches chasing him or something.
He is overcome with the vapors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've managed to get some money together, and
this is my least favorite scene in the movie. It was just really hard to watch.
Oh yeah, because she's gonna have blood all over the front.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and it's just this like bleeding her and torturing her, and I don't know.
New Orleans is really instrumental in all the Vampire Chronicles. That's where the majority of them are take place, and also the Lives of the Mayfair Witches trilogy, right, Nina? Have you read those?
Yeah, yep, I read those. I forget how many of the books I read, but I read three of those books.
Yeah.
Well, and
she said that she moved back to New Orleans, and that when she got there, she wrote all those witches books.
When you think about it, this is the perfect place to set a vampire story, because what are you going to do? Put them in the Midwest, living in a farm? I mean, that wouldn't work.
Well, you need them someplace where there's a lot of human people moving
for victims.
When you walk down through the French Quarter of New Orleans, it looks exactly like it would have 200 years ago.
Yeah, so they probably could shoot in a lot of places. Like, for instance, one of the interviews we heard, there's a beautiful restored plantation, which they used, I guess, for Louis' plantation. And it had all these pillars and stuff that, it's still there today. Like, even now in 2020, you can go visit it. It's got tours and stuff. And that's where they shot, for Louis' plantation.
That shot of Lestat is just... It's disgusting and attracting at the same time, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really an effective movie. It's just some of this is, oh, God.
And I wonder if they had any sort of appliances on their face, because it just seems that their cheekbones are a little more prominent. It seems like some features in their face are a little more angular.
Or did they just kind of
or is it
starve
just
themselves for the role to also make,
No, I mean, mostly prosthetics, were not used on, the just normal makeup of just color, like light skin and the veining that we were talking about. And, I believe Tom Cruise and both Brad Pitt had hair pieces, for their long hair and stuff. And
then, of course, there's makeup and highlighting and lighting and all that stuff.
Makeup contour, you can really make somebody look, their cheekbones and their
hollowed out.
Because just with color.
I could do that,
It's great work. So this was done with Stan Winston, and some visual effects were done by Rob. Let me see. What was his name? Rob Legato. He did visual effects.
The makeup effects people from Stan Winston's studio, one of the main guys that was really important in the beginning doing artwork, doing design work and stuff, is a guy named Mark Crash McCreary. And he draws really beautiful pencil sketches with lots of shading, and he did some portraits of Tom Cruise as Lestat and, Brad Pitt, and then, with the old-fashioned clothes and, what they would look like with the hair pieces and the veining and the teeth and all that, and like a series of stages when he goes to look like a mummy, all desiccated and stuff,
Yeah. And unlike what most people think, I mean, Anne Rice is not just a vampire author. She's made movies. She's written books with mummies, werewolves, angels, witches, and Jesus. She's written a couple of books about Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah. I read that book too.
Apparently, in one of the interviews we heard, she's just had a movie made about one of the Jesus books.
Oh, really? Oh.
In 2016.
I know that she was raised a Catholic, and then she kind of gave up on the church in '98, and then in 2008 she became more attached to the church again, and then she finally got out of it again. It's just weird.
She'll probably go back and forth one more time.
Yeah, struggling Catholic, like every Catholic, you know.
Yeah, one of the tragic things besides her daughter was her husband's death not that long ago.
Yeah.
No, it was 2002. It was a long time ago.
Now, yeah.
But in one of the interviews we watched, it seemed more recent.
He died of a brain tumor or something.
Jeez.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, it was like he was with her. They were together for 41 years or something like that, married. And then he got diagnosed, and within 4 months, he was gone.
Oh, my. But, this was the thing that kind of started bringing vampires into the genre, and she completely dominated the genre for a long time. And nowadays, of course, we have all sorts of weird vampire shows on the OC and whatever. But
oh yeah, I mean, there've been so many, like
they can't
Buffy
even compare to this. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious to know what happened with this, because why didn't this become the Vampire Chronicles?
Well, apparently after Queen of the Damned, it wasn't popular. Like they, no audience.
Well,
it's like if you
Queen of the Damned looked like a second-rate, like direct-to-video movie. So it seems like it was already doomed right from the start. I mean, why didn't they make another movie of this caliber?
Well, Ryan, look at all the bad decisions studios make with Nightbreed and so many other films.
Yeah.
We've heard, Hellraiser.
Yeah, but I'd be curious to hear like what happened. Why did that thing get such a low budget and second tier actors compared to this one? I mean, Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise.
We'll just chalk it up to lightning not being able to hit the same place twice.
I think some of it, I just was reminded, popped into my head a quote from Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper was talking about how when he was young, the executives would just throw it out there and see if the kids go for it. See what they buy. Just throw it out there. Go ahead, throw it out there. And he said, now at this time in entertainment, they're like, we're going to put this out there and those kids are going to like it.
Yeah. Yeah, or with movies, it's like, do people already like it? Is this, what is this movie like that's already popular?
Yeah, well, I mean, look at how nowadays, the big studios, they do what they call the tentpole movies. And if it's not, got a huge budget like a Marvel $150 million budget, and then they're going to spend at least that much on advertising and prints and everything. So, the movie industry has dramatically changed, and it was going through changes even back when this came out,
Yeah. Well, right. And like, look at everybody trying to copy Marvel by making their own shared universe that mostly fails miserably.
Yeah, and you can see from the earliest days, like back, like we were talking about Blade. Blade is actually an example of one of those movies that, was a like lightning striking, in a bottle. And
one of the first good Marvel movies,
It began the Marvel movie run in a way,
Yeah. Although most people going to see it didn't even realize it was a comic book movie.
That's right. It was amazing how, like if you are a fan like I am of Marvel Comics and DC and everything, I was following Tomb of Dracula. I owned those issues where Blade first appeared,
Yeah.
I want to bring up the amazing sets in this scene when Lewis finds Claudia with her rotting mother's corpse.
Yeah.
And then he runs out and he goes into those sewers. It's just an amazing set. I mean, this is just tremendous.
What plague was it in, it was like 1700s that...
It might have been bubonic, right?
Yeah,
with
maybe.
Rats
oh, man.
And stuff. Like
what
from
plague
Europe,
wasn't?
like a ship comes from Europe with plague rats on it and jumps off.
Take your pick. It could have been typhus. Could have been any sort of thing.
That's kind of a Nosferatu-y thing, like the concept that they could live off rats on board ship. Lestat actually tells Louis that,
Yeah.
If they're ever trapped on a ship, rats.
But in answer to your question, the summer of 1914, a Swedish sailor in New Orleans died, and he had the bubonic plague. So that's when they decided to start exterminating over 500,000 rats. Rats were a vector of disease when all these sailing ships were going from port to port. When they would dock, all these mice would come out of the boat and go infest the cities. And, wasn't exactly the best place.
In Australia, there's a mouse infestation going on because they got rid of too many stray cats.
You mean now?
Oh. Yeah. It's in the news now.
Oh, wow.
Mice swarming.
When I was in school, I've heard this story of this island somewhere, maybe in a British, colony, but that they had too many mice, so they brought cats, and then the cats ate all the mice, and then there was an infestation of vermin and bugs, and then they brought DDT, and then they destroy the entire ecosystem of the island. It's people made a lot of mistakes.
And the gorillas are to kill the dogs, and sharks to fight the gorillas. Yeah,
the tigers to kill the gorillas, and the elephants to kill the tigers.
And this is where Lewis comes to grips again with his own nature, and he tries to justify it within himself. And the greater part is that this is all said, this is all shown instead of said, right? He's taken the blood of Claudia, try to make it a merciful death, but at the same time, Lestat shows up and says, what an hypocrite you are. Never take another life, but now you're, the judge of who deserves to live and who deserves to die a merciful death. And,
and interestingly, in this part, Lestat knows that he probably knows that this is even breaking a kind of a vampire moral code to do this to a child.
Well, also the reason why I think that Louis, the two of them here are both vampires, and Louis, if he bites her and kills her and turns her, he will not be able to read her mind. They will not be able to have the psychic bond. That was a very important part in the book, that whoever is the biter, they will not be able to read that victim's mind anymore.
If they turn into a vampire.
Right.
They're closed off from each other psychologically. Oh. It's more in Vampire Lestat, I think.
But that's one of the reasons why later on, when she wants a companion for the rest of her life, she picks a woman and asks him to bite her. That way, if she bites that woman, her and the woman will never have this psychic bond anymore.
If the woman drinks her blood.
I see.
But when
that's a kind of a subtlety.
She's a child, and she's not strong enough to give enough of her blood to turn the woman.
Or to survive on her own. To survive alone on her own.
Lestat asks Louis to read her thoughts, right, about that aristocrat, and he can't.
Right.
So but we don't really get the sense that he ever gets the ability through the course of this movie.
He does, yeah.
It comes in time, apparently. Hundreds of years later, vampires will learn to fly, to float, different things.
Yeah. Oh, here comes the Rob Legato visual effects, turning Kirsten Dunst from a dying girl into a curly locked, beautiful little vampire.
Like a morph.
Yeah, like her curly locks will grow back even if you chop them off.
Yeah. There's a part where she gets upset at that.
Yeah, when she figures out that she can never grow up.
Right. And she keeps seeing beautiful women with full breasts and stuff, and she's like, I want to be her,
Yeah.
Which brings us to a rather awkward moment in the movie, which is when she, at the time 12, has to, does a scene kissing Brad Pitt.
Has to play these parts that are much too adult.
Yeah. And she said later in an interview that she felt a little uncomfortable at the time she was 12, and she's like, Brad Pitt has cooties. That's her quote.
Who I was thinking about was Carrie Henn, too. Like, when she was really young, she was Alien, Newt in Aliens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been nice to see her, grow up in the movie franchise instead of killing her off in Alien. I mean, I like Alien 3, but I wish they hadn't done that.
Oh, I know. Everybody's talking about the Blomkamp story where she, they just ignore Alien 3, 4, 5. They just make another movie where her and Hicks are still alive,
Right. Well, and to me, Alien 3 was still a good movie. It's the last good movie. Well, I didn't like the fourth one. I mean, I kind of like that. I like Prometheus and Covenant okay.
Yeah.
But we're getting off topic.
Yes, we are. Although this came out around the same time as Alien 3. It was pretty close.
Uh-huh. Yeah, what did you guys think of, in this film, like as far as the effects go, there are some major effects. Like there's the cutting of the throat of Lestat. Yeah. There's the chopping of the vampires in half with a sickle.
Yeah,
there's
I
the
loved
burning.
That. Yeah.
The burning of the girl, the little, Kirsten Dunst, and the other woman to crisp, from the sun.
I've seen the making of
effects sequences.
Yeah, I've seen the making of the vampire, and I saw Stan Winston talk about some of those effects, and it was fascinating the way that they did.
And I just sent a link for us to.
But I think I'd rather talk about that when that actually happens on screen.
Sure,
but they're definitely amazing. I mean, this movie is visually stunning, and they actually filmed a lot on location in New Orleans. There's a list of locations that I found. Some of them still standing, like when they kill
that plantation.
Yeah, and when they kill Lestat and set the house on fire, and Lestat is burning inside the house. That house is still standing nowadays. It's still there. I think it's a restaurant now, but
Anne Rice is saying one of the locations, she said the architecture wouldn't have been quite like that at that time period.
In her book, it wasn't, but they just said, it's just too good of a real location. Plantation location to not use it, in the movie, even though it's not 100% correct,
Yeah. And here's little Claudia starting to kill every servant that they get. It's like,
even the piano teacher. It's like, we told you, it's very hard to find piano teachers,
Yeah.
It's like,
not in the house.
Yeah.
Not in the house. It's, And then she wants her own.
She was 12 when she played this. I did the math finally.
From a purely, professional aspect, if you're a vampire and you have a plantation and you have all these bodies piling up, it's like, you must have some trusted Renfield servants that are going to help you dispose of corpses out back or something,
I love the little shot of her coming out of her little white children's coffin and tiptoeing around the sunlight falling on the floor to go sleep in Lewis's coffin. That's just a beautiful shot.
So, Nina, you were saying that you did the math. You mean is on her age?
Yeah, she was 12 when they filmed it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Which is actually better.
She's playing 10.
In the book, it's 10. Yeah, if they would have used a real 10-year-old, that would have been bad. But, another thing with the tiptoeing around the sunlight, she also keeps her feet away from the blood that's pouring out from Lestat when she cuts his throat.
Doesn't want to ruin your dainty shoes.
The piano tutor.
In a way,
the piano tutor is smacking her in the knuckles as she makes a mistake, and that's not going to go on for long.
No, and when in the way you kind of see this as Lestat's plan to say, "Look, Louis, even a child can do this." Right? Even a child can be a vampire. What's your problem?
Yeah, like she has more of a bloodlust than you. You're a weak excuse for a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She represents kind of like that naivete of infancy, right? I mean, that inability to know what her boundaries are. Yeah, to stop. And also the appetite. I mean, when you're young, you can eat whatever you want.
Yeah,
of course. And you never
it doesn't
fat.
go onto your hips, your butt.
And you just want to have more and more. When you're a child, all the needs are directed at you, and when you're an adult, it kind of goes both ways.
Yeah, right? and your morality is something that you have to learn from your parents.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and in this case,
they're not really good parents.
Yeah.
Like they're entertaining an entire family.
Sociopath.
Yeah. Well, by definition, vampires have to be that way, right? I mean, look at Louis. He's a miserable vampire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Just entire family just being taken out of the house happens.
Yeah, I'm glad that they kind of glossed over that.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. It's like when you think about it, you know, it's like who carries out all the bodies? Where do they bury them? You know, do they have a vat of acid somewhere? I mean, what's going on? You know.
Yeah, well,
but if you read if you read in the other books, they don't have to really eat that often and that much. You know, the vampire could get away with a lot less.
Yeah, like at one point they say Lestat would have 3 per day or per night. Well, and one child early in the day or morning or whatever, you know, and then one later, and then an aristocrat to finish it off.
And I thought I remembered from the books that they could sleep in a coffin for like 100 years and then wake themselves up and so that they could be in a different time.
Yeah, the Queen of the Damned and stuff they did. Yeah. He did that.
He is
like, in other words, he gets woken up by rock and roll music.
Yeah, right.
You know.
It's funny that you were talking about how, you know, the aristocracy of Lestat, because there's a scene we just missed here that was like Lewis asks Lestat, because he says, I would kill for some Creole blood. He's like, Yankees are not to your taste? And he's like, their blood is too democratic for my taste.
Right.
He's missing that aristocracy, you know, that feeling of privilege, that class thing.
And later on, it's explained that for some reason that it's like the reason why he prefers the aristocracy's blood is because he's a commoner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he has no, you know, blue blood himself. You know,
Nina, do you know anything about the origins of Lestat that you could tell us? Like. Does the book say who bit him, or there's an origin story, or is it kept?
I don't. Not an interview, but in the Vampire Lestat, he was bit somehow.
Was it an Egyptian?
No. But the roots, he eventually, by Queen of the Damned, you find out the roots go back to Egypt, go back to Osiris and Isis. But I can't remember the exact details, but for somehow Lestat did not think his transformation was consensual, and he didn't learn anything from the guy who turned him. They didn't know each other.
Is the guy who turned him killed by him or dead?
Oh, I was struggling to remember, you know, because I knew it at one time.
Yeah, he didn't learn nothing from him.
At any rate, Lestat ends up becoming a vampire, and he's sort of on his own.
He has to learn everything on his own.
He goes kind of feral. So,
but he was turned in the 18th century, right? Not in Egypt.
And
no,
Paris
not in Egypt. Right.
Okay.
Right. Sometime after 1700, I believe.
He's bitten by Magnus.
In Europe.
Apparently.
Yeah, because later on you find out that he knew all the vampire theater. He knew Armand before Louis met Armand.
Because Lestat himself went looking for his own kind.
In Europe and found them. So in a way, it's like when they find out, when the theater of vampires find out that they killed Lestat, it's supposed to be because they read his mind and find out.
Yeah. And
they know who Lestat
sense
is
in this movie. Yeah.
In the Vampire Lestat passed through those people on his way to America.
Yeah.
So by the time Louis and the girl get there, Lestat is years gone. But they know him, and they know what a.
So when they hear his name in their brain, I guess they go like Lestat.
Oh, we remember.
So if you want to turn into a vampire, you better make sure that your hair is nice and stuff before you.
When you die, yeah.
If your hair's all screwed up,
then be a ghost outfit.
Yeah, exactly.
Or don't get turned when you're a tiny little kid, or when you're a really ugly old person.
Yeah.
Get it only in the prime of life.
Right.
This is the part where she's going through vampire puberty.
Yeah.
And she is, she says, teenagers say I didn't mean to be born, and then she's like, which one of you made me the way I am?
Because I hate you now.
Yeah. She feels like she's a doll forever because she's now still a little girl with frilly dresses and curly hair.
Yet she doesn't want to die, does she?
No.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody really wants to die except for Lewis. He keeps wanting to die. But I think the reason why he does not choose to walk into the sunlight, like we were talking about at the beginning, is just that he's afraid if he dies, he goes to hell. He's afraid
I guess so. He's a Christian. He believes in God and heaven and hell then, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, there is a spiritual component to the origins of vampires, or a supernatural component, having to do with the murder of Osiris.
Oh, in this series?
Yeah, in the I believe by the Queen of the Damned, she she fleshes that out.
And
so we're talking about the myth of Seth cutting Osiris's body in little bits and throwing it in the Nile and stuff like that.
It goes all the way back to that.
She ties it all the way back to that. Yep.
I think I read this book and the second one, Queen of the Damned. That's as far as I got.
They haven't killed Lestat yet, but they're planning on it. Or she's planning on it. Kirsten Dunst, you can see her little wheels turning while she's planning.
I think we're like 5 minutes away.
We're going to get rid of him.
From that.
Hey, puberty, you want to kill your dad and sleep with your mom. She here wants to kill her dad and sleep with Louis.
Yeah.
So
with her other dad.
It's kind of an Electra syndrome.
The Oedipus.
Yeah.
Right. Now, as far as the casting of Tom Cruise and stuff, let's talk about that controversy since we have a lull here. What did you guys think of your own personal opinions of the casting of Tom Cruise, for instance?
Oh, he's great. And I think that at the time, everybody shut up once the movie came out, right? I mean, he did a
once
amazing
Anne
job.
Rice put the stamp of approval on it, I think.
Yeah.
Her fans were ready to burn down the studio, but when she came out and said, okay,
I didn't hear anything about that, but I did see this movie in the theaters. I think it was around December of '94. And now that I've been looking into old interviews with Anne Rice, I found some stuff here about her talking about some of her reasons for that. It says, as you may know, while the film Interview with the Vampire was in production with David Geffen, the author of the book had no legitimate contact with him or with the studio or with anyone connected to the film. When the announcement was made that Tom Cruise would star as Lestat, I had deep reservations and severe criticisms. So did many of my readers. I talked openly about this. A curtain thereafter divided me from the entire production, and with reason. Nobody likes to be criticized. That includes movie people too. And then she says that she never saw any rough cuts of Interview with the Vampire, no clips, no screenings. And then ultimately David Geffen, right before the movie premiered, sent her a VHS copy of the movie for her to see at her home. And then she saw it and she liked it so much that she even bought 2 pages in Variety to recommend the movie.
Oh, wow.
So,
she did. That was big news. I remember reading that because we all knew she hated it. And all of a sudden she was like, I need to set the record straight. And she used her own money to do that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. I didn't know that she took out an ad, but I had heard.
Pages,
oh, yeah. She was like, I'm going to set the record straight. Everybody's going to know.
Yeah, and it's like you think of Tom Cruise, it's like, oh, Top Gun is going to be the vampire Lestat. But it's like, no, he's an actor. It's not going to be...
I like him. I like him a lot.
If you think about it, like his body of work, like he's done some weird projects, like this. Mm-hmm. Remember the one where he's in a wheelchair? What was it? Born on the 4th of July.
Born on the 4th of July.
And Bobby
remember
is in that
of
movie.
course he was in Risky Business, and then of course, I mean, God, I wrote a big article for Cinefex magazine on Top Gun, but he's had a wide career. I mean, he did that one where he was like a rock and roll singer, dude. Remember that? It was a musical.
Oh,
which one is that? I don't think
it was this weird musical. What was that called, Nina? It was like rock something or other.
Okay.
Rock of Ages, I think.
Yeah,
I just don't buy him as an action star, and
you mean the Mission Impossible films and all those?
Yeah, I mean, and also I have to bring this up. I mean, it's well known that he stands on boxes all the time in movies next to other actors that look
right, and he always picks leading ladies or actresses that are not taller than him as much as possible.
Or if they are, they just put the
and in recent times, he pretty much ruined the Mummy movie, the Mummy remake, right?
Yeah.
From what we've heard, I didn't actually.
From what we've heard, it was supposed to be that they were going to have a whole new franchise of all the original Universal monster movies coming back, like a Marvel.
The Dark Universe, right?
Yeah.
The Universal Dark Monster Universe.
But that doesn't mean that he's a bad actor. I mean, he's
no. Yeah. I think it's about casting. It's like you got to find the right project for the right guy.
He did a good job, but what I said at the time when this movie first came out, I remember distinctly telling people that he did a good job, but unfortunately, this would have been an opportunity to make an unknown actor's career. Like an unknown person could have launched a whole career off of this this one role. And to Tom Cruise, it's not the role of a lifetime for him.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but he did a good job, you know.
Right, but when he's gone, he's going to be remembered as probably the Mission Impossible.
Or Top Gun.
When this movie
Cocktail.
when he was announced in this movie, all my goth friends were like, "Why not Julian Sands? It's so unfair."
Oh yeah,
Or
Warlock
Rutger
movies.
Hauer.
Yeah.
Why not Rutger Hauer? I mean,
Oh
I
yeah,
think
can you imagine
Rutger
that?
Oh,
Just the range that Rutger Hauer has.
Mm.
Just look at Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I want to say,
And he's no longer with us. R.I.P.
yeah,
Rutger
unfortunately,
Hauer.
yeah. But I want to say, in this movie, I mean, I usually like Brad. I think Brad Pitt. I like him more as an actor than Tom Cruise. But in this movie, I like Tom Cruise more than Brad Pitt's performance. I think sometimes Brad Pitt looks a little wooden. Sometimes it looks a little too angsty. I don't know. I don't buy his accent. But they both did great jobs. And then, of course, Brad Pitt went on to make some really amazing movies after this the next year. And Tom Cruise the same.
I must admit that you're right. Like 12 Monkeys and, you know, I love Seven. Seven's awesome.
Yeah. This is the trap is sprung for Lestat. So little Claudia brings him two little boys for him to snack on.
Yeah, and the Lestat really at this point had become so self-involved and uncaring, you know.
Yeah, you get to see his personality by now, and you don't really like it, you know.
Yeah,
like Tom Cruise said, he really loves, in his own way, he loves Louis and Claudia. So it kind of breaks his heart a little bit when they reject him and they get mad at him.
This is a very complicated movie in terms of like who's the bad guy, right? I mean, you can't really put your finger on the one, you know. Of course, there's
That's because, like I said, you know, it's all about the ships, the relationships.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. I mean, I think the real conflict is Louis against himself, and so in a way, Louis is the good guy and the bad guy.
And Lestat, you know, in a way later, you know, with the other books and everything, he's actually not a bad guy. He becomes his own guy, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everybody loves Lestat later on.
He's just self-empowered.
Yeah.
Here we go. This is the death scene. This is the death scene where she slices his throat. And once he's on the floor, you might be able to tell or not, but that shows the amazing nature of it. But once he starts dying, he kind of shrivels like the life is being sucked out of him. Yeah. And Stan Winston said he wanted him to look like he was turning into almost like an Auschwitz victim or
like a mummy
or a dying AIDS patient or something. Those were his words, not mine. But right now, once they go back to him, this is not Tom Cruise anymore. This is a robot.
It's a puppet.
What?
Yeah.
No way.
It's amazing.
It is a robot. There is a making of.
Done,
you can see.
You know, wonderful paint work and hair work and amazing. It took like 7 or 8 men to puppeteer that thing. You know, the hollow floor.
That
is
amazing.
Like rods running through it and stuff.
And stuff that, you know, when people take CGI shortcuts, that you can't match things like that.
I think it's an amazing scene. It works so well because you just see him like shrivel as the blood comes out of him.
Yeah. Well, and that transition between living Tom Cruise and the robot puppet thing is so
it's
seamless.
Amazing. It's not even, it's seamless. You can't see the transition, you know.
Yeah. I never knew that until you just said it right now. So,
and we'll put a thing to the show notes, you know, for you if you want, about that YouTube video that we found about showing behind the scenes on the testing of it and everything.
Yeah. I got a lot of links I'm going to add too.
Is that the Shadow of the Vampire, the making of
that? Yeah, there's like a
I put
playlist.
that in there already.
Good.
And Louis kind of mourns him a little bit.
Yeah.
And now I'm noticing he does have green eyes. I never really noticed.
Louis does, yeah. I believe they're contacts. I don't think Brad Pitt's eyes are like.
No, they're contacts. Yeah, he didn't like the contacts. They were uncomfortable for him.
I would think, yeah. Man, they treated him so badly. Like,
yeah.
Throw him in the swamp.
Yeah, to the alligators, not crocodiles.
It's funny that this when you go back to the interviews like this, it's like, oh yeah, right. Well, I forgot this is an interview.
Yeah, you get so immersed into the story.
Yeah.
I mean, if it wasn't called Interview with a Vampire, I mean, a lot of people could criticize that and say, "Don't keep cutting back to that guy. Just keep going with the story," you know.
but it works really well. In a way, it would have been nice if Hellraiser 4 was made more like this. You know.
You mean Bloodline?
Bloodline, yeah.
You mean using the narrative of telling it all from a story like that?
No, I just mean more cohesive, more seamless in terms of like being immersed in the story. And
instead of cutting from, Angelique in the 19th century and cutting to the space station, the guy I get what you're saying.
Well, you've read the original script that Pete wrote, right?
Oh, yeah.
If they had shot that as is, it would have been fine. I mean, he doesn't cut back and forth.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's multiple levels of problems with that. I mean, starting with the Weinsteins.
Yeah, I would love to just go back and make that script the way it was.
Yeah.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
Yeah.
Lestat who? Lestat going to suck your life out.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, like, are they really? I mean, maybe Claudia's in danger, but he wasn't going to kill Louis.
Oh, dude, just this scene here where he's playing the piano behind the curtain.
Yeah.
And you can't really see, but you kind of make out that his face is all like messed up and his hair is wet and his hands all look like scaly.
Yeah.
Like from when he drank the alligator's blood. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
He got some alligator blood in him.
He's still getting his act back together, so he gets all gnarly.
Amazing stand.
How long has it been? How long time do you think?
It seems like months.
You think so?
Weeks,
think so.
I would say.
Yeah.
He says that he's just been like eating all the putrid life in the Mississippi.
Rats and snakes and lizards and river.
And here he's wearing a full on makeup with cheap appliances and
a zombie. Basically, he's a zombie.
Yeah.
A vampire.
He's an
zombie.
undead. But I just want to bring up that one thing I didn't like in the 90s was the way that all the vampires just became like regular people with an eyebrow appliance. It just became such a common thing, especially with Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh,
it's like, okay, let's just make the old vampire with the eyebrow appliance.
Yeah.
That comes from Lost Boys.
That comes from what?
Oh, yeah. Lost Boys.
Lost Boys. Like, if you look at Lost Boys, there's a makeup artist named Greg Canham, who he did the makeup for Lost Boys, and he created that Buffy brow, that you're talking about, in Lost Boys first, and then it's sort of bridged over, and you see it in Buffy all the time,
Mm-hmm. It was a little overused. I mean, it was effective, but once you have it on every single episode, it just becomes a little overused.
Yeah, certain characters. Like
so Lestat
Spike.
was set on fire inside this building. It was filmed in the French Quarter of New Orleans.
Yep, I've walked through there before.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I had a
house.
Yeah, well, not the house. I mean that street,
Bourbon Street or something.
Yeah. Yep.
And that house
Anne
is
Rice
known as
was having this big vampire party. Like, in other words, there's a fan club for the Vampire Lestat, and for years they would have the fan club would have a ball, a vampire ball. I don't know if it was on Halloween or whatever, but for years they would do that.
It's always the Saturday before or after
Halloween. And so one year Anne Rice hosted it, and she was talking about it in an interview.
And there's also a vampire ball based on Bram Stoker. But I was going to say, this house is known as Madame John's Legacy, and it's a rare French Creole building that, ironically, was one of the only buildings that survived the New Orleans fire of 1794.
Oh, wow.
And here, it's the one that starts.
Oh, so they're saying Louis started the New Orleans fire?
Maybe not, because that was 1794, but definitely this is one of those many fires in New Orleans that destroyed a lot of areas.
Well, he did say he was turned in 1791.
Oh,
so he could be
lined up. Could have lined up.
Well, although I think the three of them lived together for many years, more years than that. But
in the book, yeah.
Oh, and I forgot to mention that Alice Cooper's dog is Lestat.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Anne Rice says that she found out, that many people were naming their children Lestat, and that, there's a a coffee shop in San Diego called Lestat, and that
Nice.
even Alice Cooper named his dog Lestat.
That's great. I'm a huge Alice Cooper fan. I have all of his albums.
All right, a
Me
Phoenix
too.
boy.
I'm a big Alice Cooper fan too.
I hear he's a great golfer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have actually tried to get him to come to our golf benefit that we've had for ourselves.
For school, yeah.
That would be
He has
cool.
not answered my emails, but
Aw.
You know, I think the
Alice,
first
if you're listening,
I think the first time I got to know Alice Cooper's music was that special concert that they had recorded where he gets his head chopped off by the guillotine.
oh yeah, I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that
That's
was
it.
like
That's
my
like
first.
almost every concert.
Yeah, well, there was one that was playing on TV, and I saw that and was like, "Whoa, look at that!" It was pretty cool.
Oh, there was the Welcome to My Nightmare special.
Oh yeah, I love
yeah.
all the theatrics. I had a friend who is passed away now, but years ago he did a lot of propage and stuff for their tours. You know, like skulls and guillotines and things.
I have my old ticket stub from when I saw him. The
Oh,
first
wow.
time I saw Alice Cooper on stage, he
we
was
should talk about Anne Rice.
he was chasing a tooth with a giant toothbrush.
Oh, for Unfinished Suite.
It was in the 70s. It was the late 70s.
Yeah,
I've
song
recently,
would be Unfinished Suite, I think.
I've seen a photo of a recent photo of Alice Cooper serving food at a food bank.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. It was one of those Facebook pictures that people share. It's like, here's Alice Cooper at a food bank serving food. The kids have no idea. And, yeah. So look at
What
this
I put
lovely
in it.
ball.
Yeah.
You can see here that Claudia changes from wearing like frilly clothes, frilly girl outfits to, little
Adult,
miniature
yeah.
versions of adult dresses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
this
she
wonderful
becomes a little
shot.
lady.
This wonderful
Yeah, I was
shot where he's
telling-
find the other vampire.
If there's
We were
anything
talking
close
about
to a
Anne Rice.
bad guy, it would be this guy, right? That's coming up, this lead actor.
You mean Stephen Ray? That guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not Armand, but the other one.
Yeah, the one that can go upside down on
Yeah.
the walls.
And he likes miming miming Louis' movements.
Yeah, like a mirror. Like
Yeah.
whatever he does, he reflects
It's
it.
a bit. He's doing a bit. He's a theater guy.
Yeah.
Santiago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he was actually in The Crying Game. He was the other actor in
Oh.
The Crying Game.
I don't know if I've ever actually seen The Crying Game. People talked about it
Oh, really?
so much that
Oh,
I
okay.
never actually saw it.
Did they ruin it for you already?
Oh yeah. I mean, that
Yeah,
was
once
like
upon a
that-
time, people didn't tell you when they left the theater. They kept it to themselves.
Yeah. Like
Again,
on-
this set. I mean, I don't know what location they shot this scene in, but it's just an amazing location with all the giant trees in the back and these cobblestone streets and
well,
this
you know
arch.
the
It's
sequence,
beautiful.
where he goes upside
He's just
down
about to do it.
with the cobblestones?
Yes.
This is done with the old 2001: A Space Odyssey or Fred
Yeah.
Astaire trick of building a set that rotates.
Right. Yeah.
And they built, this tunnel set where it's got the cobblestones, and you
Yep.
can actually, the guy is staying on the ground the whole time. The
When-
set is rotating around him.
when you're a
It's not
vampire,
perfect.
your hair and your hat and your cape don't fall up or anything.
I know the gravity.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I like that. Oh, look at that. That is amazing. I was going to say something. Ah, man, I forgot. Go ahead.
No problem. But anyways, they were just saying about how they had to build this ginormous, metal framework, like, for 2001: A Space Odyssey, the same thing. And then the fake cobblestones. And, they had to have, Stephen Ray with a choreographer, work all this out. And then, of course, they also had to have a stuntman with a harness and stuff for, for certain shots. And, because Stephen Ray didn't do the whole thing all by himself,
Yeah, it's like a giant rotisserie set. I know what I was going to say. I was going to say that I forgot again. Whoops.
That's okay.
I think
But Ryan's right about how capes and hair and stuff don't fall, when you're a vampire.
Gravity
Doesn't affect you.
yeah. Well, and this Armand character, I think, is developed more in the novel and less so in this. His motivations are not quite as clear, in the movie. I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He's younger and prettier in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, what did you guys think of the casting of, Antonio Banderas?
I like him.
He's great.
Yeah, I think
He's really
great.
awesome on this. Yeah.
I thought that it was interesting casting because, of several reasons. For one, of course, I think, at the time, he was in his prime. He was at the youngest probably that he was ever, working in film, and that he is the most beautiful that he has ever been, at this point. And with the wigs and the costuming and his accent gives the nice flavor of a European, strange vampire.
Yeah. I think that this show is crazy. It's funny they keep cutting to the audience reactions like, what the hell are we watching?
Theater.
How much did you pay for these tickets?
Yeah. This. Oh, wouldn't you have loved?
Yeah, I mean, this brings us to the
theater like this.
This brings us to the chapter title, right? I mean, K for Killing Joke, but it focuses so much on the Grand Guignol Theater in Paris, which was this theater where you have these plays of murder and mystery and blood. And, there would be a splash zone in that theater.
Right.
Yeah,
but you can tell that from the audience reactions that they start
war.
going like, wait, what? What's going on? And wait, is that person real? Is this woman really dying? And
yeah.
Yeah,
but that's the thrill of it. It's like people would pass out in these things,
Well,
like, for instance, one of the documentary things that we found was talking about how one of the real Grand Guignols that they did was a simple blood transfusion on stage, even though I think it was only simulated, but that was what made people pass right out.
Well, and speaking, you mentioned Guar. I actually saw them in New Orleans.
Oh, wow. That's a great place.
Everybody's thinking, wow, that actress is so good. I mean, she acts so well. She really looks like she's scared. And she probably is.
And what an awesome set and theater and, the costumes and, the nudity and everything. Like the fact that, wouldn't this be a fantastic real theater to see? Like, over the years there have been, Phantom of the Opera. There's been, The Evil Dead, the musical. There's been, Stuart Gordon did various things like Reanimator live on stage, Edgar Allan Poe live on stage. I mean, this is an amazing theater. I love it.
This whole monologue about
I've seen
flesh
Dracula produced on stage. I've seen Frankenstein produced on stage. They've even done Young Frankenstein on Broadway and stuff.
You wait your turn.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, he's a great vampire, Stephen Ray.
Yeah, Rhea does a really good job here at Santiago. It's just lovely. And here comes Armand.
I think to myself, like, how many vampires are living beneath the theater? Is it 20?
It's
30?
It almost looks like 100.
You would have the catacombs, right? Yeah, you would have the catacombs.
Of them, maybe they just live down there all the time and they don't even, like you were saying, like some can live in their coffin for maybe 20, 30, 50, 100 years.
Yeah. Well,
you guys remember The Hunger with David Bowie?
Oh, yeah, I love The Hunger.
In that movie, immortality takes a completely different toll on vampires.
Right. Again, another vampire movie with another set of rules, another set of lore, even though it goes to Egyptian as well.
Yeah.
Oh, look, this scene, this shot, it's amazing. When all the vampires with their black capes, they just look like ravenous wolves or ravens or whatever, just ready to jump on the carcass. It's just a beautiful shot.
I was a goth, man. I used to go to clubs and I had a cape and I used to put on makeup and my hair was all spiked up and stuff.
Yeah.
I should show you some pictures.
They're on Facebook.
Of back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
What I used to dress up like and stuff.
They're on the Facebook.
I had long black hair and a duster trench coat. And it wore metal t-shirts.
Cool.
There's a quote from Clive.
Metal, spike bracelets and belts, and I had all kinds of.
Did you
gear,
have a chain on your wallet?
Not that, but I just had lots of chains and lots of spikes, and you should see like Road Warrior too. Like I did a whole Road Warrior thing.
Did you look like Lord Humongous?
I looked like Wes more.
Oh,
I had
okay.
the shoulder pads and
Yeah.
the whole.
That's cool.
I'll show you pictures, man.
Look, this shot right here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, that's so beautiful. That is beautiful.
And then the curtain falls, and the audience are like, "What the hell was that?" And
Yeah, I mean,
they look like they're trying
how
to
do you get tickets.
Yeah,
They're
trying
contemplating on the fragility of life.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I could just imagine the real Granging Gold, like what we've been talking about, where they would gouge out eyes
Yeah.
and things on stage. Wouldn't it be amazing to have talked to people after they saw that stuff? Have a time machine, go back there and just, wow, we've heard about how The Exorcist and certain films had people, passing out, and they had, people run out of the theater and stuff like that. It's like, man, can you imagine the real Granging Gold, back in the, what was it, the 1800s?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, I think so. Yeah. Let me just check that for you. It was at the, yep. So it says here the theater was in the 1880s, I think.
Yep.
And, there were lots of plays where people get their eyes gouged out, there'd be murders.
Surgery.
At the end of the plays, there would also be strange fluids on the floor. The crowd really liked to see that stuff, Yeah. But look at the set here, this catacomb, this necropolis of vampires. It's just amazing.
I was very lucky here in San Francisco Bay Area. We had a theater company that made a Clive Barker play. They did Frankenstein in Love.
Oh, cool! I would have.
And I
loved
got to see that.
Oh man,
I got to see that.
He totally based that play on the whole Grand Guignol idea. He said so.
For me, luckily enough, to see that, we recovered it for Coenobium and stuff, and to actually get to see real theater like that, it was amazing. Like this Grand Guignol.
Yeah.
He's Armand, my homonym, because I'm Armando. So.
Yeah, in the game, huh?
How you say?
Yeah, it's a French name, Germanic.
I am Puss in Boots.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Of course, it's played by the same guy. But in this movie, he's supposed to be the oldest vampire, right? He lived over 400 years.
He's also the Nasonex bee.
That's funny.
Antonio. Remember the Saturday Night Live skits where they were doing as how you say.
Oh yeah.
I mean, how you say thing.
How you say thing. The Antonio Banderas imitators.
He really started out his career in a lot of Almodovar movies that I've seen when I was a kid. So a lot of those. I don't know the names in English.
Who was the one that that how Tom Cruise remade that Spanish film also that was about?
Oh yeah, Vanilla Sky.
Yeah, Vanilla Sky. Was that a Almodovar film?
No. I think that was a different director.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Tom Cruise, ironically, again crossing over.
That's true. Yeah, into
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Right.
Yeah, it was.
I was trying to think of more Clive
Amenabar.
Barker crossovers.
Yeah, the director of that movie was Alejandro Amenabar, and he also directed the American version, I think, which is almost shot by shot. Even has what's her name?
His wife, right? He eventually married her. What's her name?
Penelope Cruz.
Yes.
I don't think he married her.
No, he didn't marry her. They
just dated her, I think. Yeah. Penelope Cruz is in both movies, playing the same character in both versions.
Yep.
Now that's
irony. I think not. No.
But this is where Lewis gets to know a little more about the history of the vampires and how it actually raises more questions than answers.
Yeah, because again, even he does not know a lot of things. Yeah,
and at this time they don't really fill him in on having known Lestat. They were like Lestat.
Yeah, this movie isn't going to delve. This movie isn't going to delve into that because they know that would open a can of worms, and they're not going to answer any of those questions. Because they may not make any more movies or anything.
So here's the thing: they tell him that the only thing that vampires don't want is for a vampire to kill another vampire. That would be punishable
biggest
by death.
breaking of their law. Yeah.
And I guess because of the psychic connection that they have, they find out that they've killed Lestat. Yeah.
They can read his mind. Yeah.
Right.
And that's why now they're both in danger.
That's the way it comes across in the film.
They're
like the Stephen Ray character seems to hear in his mind the word Lestat, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That how have you wronged him? He hears that, you know, he understands that
it's funny him explaining that law. It's like, if you kill a vampire, that's punishable by death. So we're going to be vampires killing you.
So we're going to break our own law.
Yeah.
And kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same illogical thing behind the death penalty.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to kill you because you
Right.
killed someone else.
Yeah.
Right.
But the first published vampire actually
Two
have
wrongs
this.
make a right. Right.
Right. I actually have this in a book that I bought years ago at a flea market, but I bought this thing. The first published vampire story was a Penny Dreadful that was published in 1845 through 47, and it was called Varney the Vampire, The Feast of Blood.
Ed French is reading that on YouTube right now.
Who?
Ed French, Edward French. He's a makeup effects artist, but he has a YouTube channel where he reads all these great stories, like
Awesome.
Ambrose Bierce and
my
He has a
favorite.
great and dramatic voice.
Oh,
Yeah.
amazing! I need to look him up on YouTube.
Yeah, he's reading Varney the Vampire. He's just put up chapter 4 or something.
That's crazy. I got to get that. Yeah, send me a link to that if you guys can after
Okay.
the commentary, because I love Varney the Vampire. It's
We'll put it
amazing.
in the show notes too.
Yeah.
He's a great reader of fiction, like Pete, and Glenn, the way that their YouTube channel is,
So it kind of this conversation, they kind of make it seem like Claudia was the only one who planned out the whole thing, but I would say that Lewis was almost as involved in killing Lestat as Claudia was, right?
Well,
I mean,
he at least feels his guilt. Feels the guilt
In a
for
human
both
court
of
of
them.
law,
Yeah.
he'd be convicted of accessory.
he's definitely an accessory.
Well,
to the
he
crime, yeah.
he did throw an oil lamp on him.
And he
helped her drag her to the swamp.
Yeah.
Throw him
Yeah.
in the swamp.
I
Burned down,
would
fell
say
over,
that I
sank
would say
into the
that
swamp.
if she asked him, he would have said no, but he went along with it when she did it.
Yeah, too late.
Yeah.
I
Burned
think
down, fell
that
over, sank into the swamp. So he built another one.
Yeah,
It fell over and
right.
sank into the swamp.
I think the problem here is that they see Claudia as kind of an abomination as a vampire. Like she's too
Yeah.
young, and so
Well,
she
yeah,
wouldn't
that's
make
what
it
all
on
the
her
other
own.
vampires think too.
Yeah.
Like, in fact, one of them says, or I guess it's Armand says, "Bring your little beauty," or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Armand was really planning to get rid of her all along.
Yeah, and she knew it. She could sense it right away.
Yeah.
There's a story Banderas says in an interview that he was filming this, and he was at the hotel during production, and he had really long fingernails. And so he was sitting in the sauna, and 4 Japanese businessmen come into the sauna, and the first thing they do is just look at him like,
They look at his
nails. And he's like, making a vampire movie, vampire, knock, knock.
And they don't understand.
And they're like, oh, vampire, oh. And they all 4 of them go out of the sauna. And he just laughed his ass off.
Crazy gaijin.
Yeah.
I love that story.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure, they had to put on, fake super long fingernails and tailor them and keep them, trimmed and everything so that, that takes a lot of time and effort, every day if you have to take them off and put them on, take them off, put them on. So he probably was trying to keep them on, even when he was not working.
With your bare hands.
Yeah,
This is where we hear that Armand actually thinks less of the vampires that are in this troupe.
Yeah.
I guess it's just this way he has of like gathering him around him and kind of, having this clan around him. But he says they're useless. They can't reflect anything.
Yeah, now he's tired of them.
Yeah.
It seems like, if he's 400 years old, that maybe he's been around them for maybe 100 or 200, and they're boring and old, and,
and maybe he's created a lot of them.
Yeah, and they were probably turned long enough ago that they're not reflecting the current century, you know?
Right. That's why he talks to Louis about you're a man at odds with yourself because you represent your own century and the fall of that century. And I guess, if you had been around for a long time, maybe you wouldn't become so attached to your own time and your own ideas. Maybe you want to be a man of the world. You want to be on that great adventure and be in touch with the world around you. At the end, we see Lestat doing that. I mean, he's driving a car, even though he's still kind of dressing in frilly shirts, but he's driving a car. He's learned how to handle himself.
And he's listening to rock and roll music on the radio too. That the Please Me, the Sympathy for the Devil,
the Guns N' Roses version.
Did I get a chance to bring up Ghost?
No.
Go ahead.
Ghost. Sympathy for the Devil was recently recorded by Tobias Forge of Ghost.
One of Doug Bradley's favorite bands.
Yes,
that's right.
Another crossover.
Yeah, I like the Tiamat version of Sympathy for the Devil.
Oh,
they're gosh, where are they? Where are they from? I think Sweden, maybe.
Sweden.
Ghost? I don't know.
Oh, Ghost.
No, not Ghost. Yes. I was talking about Tiamat.
Oh, okay.
I do not know.
But it's interesting because the point in the film, where they have gone to Europe and they're moving around, looking for other vampires. It's like, I wish, in a way, I mean, although the film is plenty long enough and everything, I wish that they would have explored that. Like I would have loved to have found, like when he says, so there's no Dracula in Transylvania. It's like, wouldn't it have been cool to find out that, Louis went to Transylvania and checked out Dracula Castle or whatever,
Yeah.
This dramatic scene with Kirsten Dunst where she delivers her lines like almost screaming, but wow, she was given her first Golden Globe nomination with this movie.
Yeah, for an 11-year-old or a 12-year-old or whatever she was at the time.
Amazing.
I think it was sad when they transitioned out of her Spider-Man movies into those Amazing Spider-Man movies that weren't as good.
Yeah, I loved her in the Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
I thought she was a great casting choice.
Yeah.
The upside down kiss.
Yeah, classic.
Yeah.
Pulling the mask off just enough,
Yeah,
there's been a lot of child actresses that have become my favorites, like Kirsten Dunst,
Christina Ricci.
Yeah, and the one that does the Black Widow. Oh God, her name.
Scarlett
Johansson.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know why I forgot.
Yeah,
those are all great actresses that started really young.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I really like, Christina Ricci as Wednesday Addams.
Oh, yeah.
It's a sad moment here where it's like, she says, "You found your companion, now you'll make me mine." And it feels like a breakup, right? I mean,
oh, yeah.
Louis and her have been together for so long, and now...
But actually not that long. Think about it. Like, how long has it been? Maybe 30 years?
Yeah, they sort of make it deliberately a little bit vague, or they blur the timeline.
Right.
I think it's supposed to be about 30 years that they're together.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem that long in the life of a 200-year-old vampire.
Well, and after his big showdown with the French vampires, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, well, now 200 more years go by or whatever. And
yeah.
Here we are in 1988 or whatever.
Right. I mean, she dies, I guess, since the day she gets turned, and then she lives with Louis, I guess, maybe 30, 40 years, and then she gets burned up,
Yeah. Well, and this poor lady that they just turned, she gets
Madeleine.
to be a vampire for like an hour, maybe, or I guess.
Right. Yeah. In the movie, but in the book, apparently, that was something me and Nina checked into. Apparently, in the book, she gets to live for a couple of weeks, but not much difference.
Yeah.
But in the movie, automatically, as soon as she gets turned, within an hour, they're burning her up.
Yeah, and what was her crime, right? I mean, it's like,
just being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
There's only one crime, killing your own kind. It's like, let's just throw her in there, too. I don't know why, but sure,
Absolutely. You're very right on there.
Well, you know,
And
it's kind of gatekeeping the vampires. Like, yeah, she doesn't deserve to be a vampire. You know, they're just, you know.
Well, and these
She's
guys
just
are
vampires.
and it's not like they're treating this like solemnly, like, oh, we hate to do this. They're like laughing and throwing them around.
Yeah, they're gleeful. They're gleeful.
They're decadent vampires. That's why Armand doesn't like them anymore.
Right. And the other thing, too, is that they don't kill Louis. Why?
Yeah. Because Armand told him not to, I think.
I think so, too. And also the way that they say, like, in other words, we're just going to box you up and you're going to be in there for maybe a couple centuries.
But really, he was only going to be in there for the night.
Well, yeah, because Armand is going to come and get him out. You know,
but none of them make a move to stop him. I mean, I think this was Armand's plan the whole time. He wanted to make it seem like he couldn't help, you know?
Right.
Because he really wanted to get rid of Kirsten Dunst to begin with.
Yeah. There he is.
Great wardrobe in this.
I think that's part of the reason why, you know, Louis is no fool. You know, I think that's part of the reason why when Louis and him are speaking to each other at, you know, the point where he says, like, I can, you know, come with me, you know, come be my companion, you know, blah, blah, blah. And Louis tells him, like, why should I do that? I can do that on my own.
Yeah.
I can go find out.
I mean, it could be argued that that as Louis rejects him, that maybe Armand would not bring him out of the coffin. That he just feels like, yeah, this is not going to work. He's not into the adventure that I want to have.
He's not into me.
Yeah, this is not a very good. It's not a very good plan, right? I mean, how is he gonna feel about them burning Claudia? It doesn't make, you know, it you know,
he's gonna hate him.
Yeah,
he hates him forever.
You can't just say, okay, well, I guess I'm going with you now. That's not really how it works.
Right. So that's why I'm saying maybe Armand would keep him in that coffin. You know?
If he had saved Claudia and let him have the choice, or let her have the choice of seeing, like, okay, you know, if you continue to live, you're constantly going to be in danger from other vampires.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do, Louis? You're going to protect her, you know, forever?
Yeah, the scene's so sad.
It is. It's their death row, right? I mean, they know exactly when they're going to die. They can see it coming. I kept thinking, though, because when the sun hits them and their skin starts burning, like, what if they had, like, sort of balled themselves up and put their dress over all of their skin? Would they survive then?
Well, you know how all the different vampire movies, there's actually, like, even in Blade, they come up with a super strong, you know, SP gazillion, you know, sunblock, well, you know, that you could put all over your skin,
right? Or they just wear, like, leather jackets and helmets
and sunglasses, you know.
Yeah,
you know, ultimately,
or contact lenses.
They would leave them there until they die,
right? So if they didn't die the first night, they just do it again.
They just
or they would come in and strip them and then
starve them,
put them in there again.
But maybe Louis would have had a chance to save her.
This is an amazing shot right here. And, you know, they built the statue of the burned bodies, and it took them a long time to do that. The shot of when Louis comes out. Oh, here's Armand releasing Louis.
Yeah. Acting like it, you know, like he's helping him out.
Yeah. The Ashen Bodies scene took a month or two to make the shot.
Wow.
They made the statue.
The tricks to it was that they built those statues and they made them so that you could cut them all apart and then put wires connecting the pieces, and one piece at a time they hooked them up to a motion control rig so that the camera would film the breakage of them apart and they could repeat it with motion control. So then in post-production, they took it into computers and they added layers and layers of dust and particles and stuff like that. Yeah. So it breaks apart in a you know, repeatable fashion, you know.
Well, they cut the statue in pieces and they wired parts of it. So when they pull the wires, those pieces break and fall. But then the dissolution and the smoke was done, you know, visual effects. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's pretty amazing.
Great, though.
Yeah, it's beautiful. You know, similar effect was done in T2 by Stan Winston Studios, only they didn't have the sophistication of computer effects that they did when they did this movie, you know, because T2 was done a little earlier. Yeah. And so they built bodies a similar way, you know, for the nuclear destruction sequence where, you know, the
Sarah Connor.
Sarah Connor gets blasted by the radiation.
She's holding on to the fence. Yeah.
It's a lot of work they put into that just for a dream.
Yeah, amazing and beautiful. And that's how they learned, about how to do a shot like that, prior to doing this in the Vampire.
This particular scene, I keep thinking like, man, don't walk in there. They're going to close the door behind you.
Yeah.
So there's a crescendo to this, right? I mean, when Lewis is hanging on the balcony after he's sucked the blood out of Madeline, he tells Claudia, what died here was not that woman. What died here was the last breath of me that was human. And that's why he's just now completely like, he's like, well, this is it. I'm going to turn into a monster. I'm going to kill all these vampires.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic sequence. I mean, think about it from a standpoint of like, okay, you got this movie that's kind of, boring, blah, 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 going on, a lot of whining and, vampires and stuff. And then finally you get to an action sequence where he comes into the theater and starts whacking people.
Yeah, there's something for everybody.
The vampire can cry only once or twice in eternity. Oh, the ennui.
Yeah. Well, right, because they probably don't make any new tears, right? They just have the ones that are in there.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know.
They could dig deep and make more tunnels and stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's more meant to say that they become numb emotionally to the point where.
Well, so now he's going to start his destruction of the theater.
But what a great concept of using a scythe, like the fact that they had that as a prop in the theater already.
Yeah.
So, it could just be like, just handy dandy scythe.
Right. Yeah. There he is, the Grim Reaper.
When I was younger, I thought that he was spreading gasoline here, but because it was reddish and stuff, and I was like, no, that's probably just spirits. That's probably just some cognac,
like whale oil or something,
or cognac or something like that. Yeah,
like some kind of fancy.
So I wonder
something flammable.
What time in the morning or late evening or whatever that he could do this, where he can still get up, and do this, but they're all still asleep.
Right.
Wakey, wakey, exit, bakey.
Yeah.
Sizzling vampire.
Yeah.
It's a shame that, the sets and the theater and stuff couldn't have been like more in the film, like longer sequences, more showing the catacombs and the tunnels and stuff, because they put all this money and time and effort into these beautiful sets and costumes and these, this is a vampire movie and here's the vampires and you don't get to really dwell on it much, And
all these burns, these burns at special effects and some of them on wires and everything, that can't have been easy to make. Well, especially getting someone on fire on a wire.
I would love to dwell on this a lot longer. Like give us 5 more minutes of this stuff,
Oh, here comes
Santiago is like cackling at him, like this is fun for him.
And here's a payoff for the time when they meet under the arch, where he kind of goes super fast and comes up behind him to knock his hat off, and he tries to do the same thing here. And he knew that was going to happen, and he just spins around and cuts him in half with a scythe.
Yeah,
I love that.
Poor Ray, he had to be really uncomfortable for about an hour or so.
Actually, the special effects here, one of the secrets, is that Stan Winston Studios, of course, did Aliens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Bishop android, when the Queen alien rips him in half, right?
Yeah.
And same thing. His Lance Henriksen is sticking his head and shoulders up through a hole in the floor for the part where the dead, Lance robot has been torn in half. Well, they did the same thing here with Steph and Ray.
They just didn't linger on it very long. So
he didn't have whole lines of dialogue during that time.
Right, and they didn't have milk and yogurt spewing out of his mouth and stuff.
Oh, God.
There's this amazing funeral hearse coming over with a little page boy that was bitten all over driving it.
Yeah, he would be like a Blade familiar, right? That little boy.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I just love this gothic type stuff, like the when you're in Europe, like you were saying, Joe, there's buildings that are 200-300 years old, 400 years old in Europe and in Portugal and stuff,
Yeah, just begging to be used for something like this.
I know. See, in America, we have to use the oldest thing we could find is a plantation.
Yeah.
The 1800s.
Old slave quarters.
Brad Pitt is wearing a great coat with these.
It's a great
bells.
pimp coat. Yeah.
It's pimpalicious.
Yeah, I know. He's finally grown into his own vampiric condition.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really did my own self, on different projects, like haunted houses and things, vampire makeup very similar to this, very pale with blue underveining and light purple underveining,
Yeah. Yeah. Anne Rice had great clothing descriptions too. She really liked
Oh, yeah, in her book.
Yeah.
She herself, I've seen plenty of interviews where she has her
Fashion.
hair is all made up and she's got these great cuffs on her shirts poking out of her dress and stuff.
Yeah,
and
very
she
romantic
Yeah.
ruffles. And
sitting in
lace,
her house
lace.
with lots of old furniture and stuff.
Yeah.
You know where she lives now, or apparently is 2 hours out of LA, in the desert. She was saying in the recent interview we found, and her son has this radio station in Los Angeles where she can, if she needs to meet with film people and, job, gigs and stuff, she can just take a 2-hour drive and go to LA,
Yeah, that's wonderful.
But she was answering a question about do you think the desert, will influence your writing, because New Orleans and, the South had influenced her writing.
I'm sure it does. I mean, the desert has a way of getting inside you. Whenever I think about living in California and driving through the Mojave and the, Joshua Tree Park, and then living in Arizona and driving through those amazing roads where you can't see the end of it. And then you can just
Palm
see some
Springs out in Vegas.
It's
area.
amazing. I mean, I'm a guy who grew up by the Atlantic Ocean and, I was, in a place with fishermen and fisherman town, but it's when you go into the desert, it's some people don't like it.
It's another world.
I don't know if Ryan would like to live in the desert. You probably think it's too hot for you or something, but some people complain it's a little empty, whatever. But it's man, there's so much to see in the desert. Sometimes it's all you got to do is look.
She was saying that she just likes the quiet. She can work, where there's no distractions, no, city noises, I guess, and stuff.
Oh, this wonderful shot of the crumbling ruin of the church.
Yeah.
Cinema, movies, new thing that he saw.
See, he sees it the sunrise. Yep.
He's watching Nosferatu.
In a film, yeah, he gets to finally see the sunrise again.
And he sees Nosferatu die on the sunrise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. The couple of, references to vampire stuff, like the Bram Stoker being Dracula and, the Nosferatu here in the movies,
He's watching Tequila Sunrise, the movie. He just came out of the...
Yeah.
So he gets to see sunrises again, only if it's only in a movie theater.
I'm actually curious about New Orleans. I've never been there. My wife's
Me neither. I've never been there either.
And she knows Bourbon Street and all that. And I remember when the pandemic started, all those streets were empty and people were posting pictures of Bourbon Street, nobody on it. It was nuts.
One of the things that we knew about also, but we haven't checked up on recently or anything, was there was a woman that had a gallery there of death. Remember that, Nina?
The Westgate.
The Westgate
I think
Gallery.
she moved out right before the flood or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And it was dedicated to Azrael, the angel of death, and it was a whole art gallery there in New Orleans.
Sure. Another writer from
was the proprietor. And
another writer from New Orleans I was very much in love with growing up in the 90s was Poppy Z. Bright.
Oh yeah, right.
Oh yes.
You in New Orleans, you can take vampire tours too, where they'll take you around.
Oh, how cool! Yeah, in San Francisco they have tours, of the weird haunted places and stuff here in the Bay Area.
So is this house that he's going into, is this one of the old houses that he used to live, or does he feel Lestat is there?
Yeah, I think it is the old house, because it looks like the same place where the piano was and stuff.
There's all sorts of corpses here that nobody seems to notice, especially one stuck right into the fencing.
Yeah, right.
And rats, lots of dead rats, which I guess he feels the presence of something here.
Yeah.
I like how, toward the end here, there's like a helicopter and stuff. And, you hear police cars, sirens, and, it really brings you into the modern era.
Yeah. And Lestat, it seems like most vampires can't handle the change of the eras.
The era, yeah. Like he needs to tap into again, like how Armand was saying, that he wants to find someone to be his companion who helps him, like, adjust to the new century. Yeah. And Lestat needs that too,
Yeah, they find it hard. What did he say? It's not everyone that has the stamina for immortal life.
Yeah.
I think Armand says that in the book and in the movie.
He is again an amazing
sort of
makeup.
The makeup,
mummyish makeup.
Great makeup.
Man, Lestat, you haven't changed your clothes in 100 years. You must have depression.
You must smell. You must stink to high heaven.
Yep. He's just been dormant. Oh, the way that the whole chair moves with him. That's amazing.
Cool.
He's afraid of Louis.
Of Louis, because Louis tried to kill him twice.
Yeah.
That was what's funny in the film. He actually says, "I killed Lestat twice."
Yeah. It also makes you wonder how many of those Paris vampires will have survived. The
fire and stuff. It's a good point. I mean, what if at some point in Louis' future existence, some half burned up vampires come after him?
We gotta read the other books.
Of course.
Read the other books.
Right.
I got one arm and one eye, and it's because of you.
Yeah.
I'll burn you up. I'll capture you and stick you in a cavern, in a tunnel with a hole in the top.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. The helicopter scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is really close to the end now.
Do you think that this is an act by Lestat? Do you think he's genuinely afraid?
I do think he is. Yeah, but a couple of years go by between this and the interview, right? So something's happened where he's gotten a hold of himself, and he's gotten a little more.
Louis left him here, and I believe that right after Louis walks away, he trails him.
Yeah.
From this point, he's dogging Louis' tail.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
And gaining strength and learning about this century, even if it's not by Louis' intention.
Yeah.
He's learning through Louis about this century.
I think so too.
So apparently there's some stuff here that they didn't put, like, for example, in the book, Louis and Armand have some adventures here. In
the book, I believe they spend some time together before he jettisons them.
Yeah, but it's tough. I mean, they have to make a 2-hour movie instead of a 3.5 to 4 hour movie, so they got to take some stuff out.
Yeah, and I mean, this was really a long time ago now, insofar as they just didn't think like they do now with the Marvel Universe and all that, about making. Maybe they would have thought of a trilogy, perhaps, of movies, but they just didn't have the foresight. Maybe Star Wars was one of the only things that people could point to back in these days and say, look, there's a trilogy that was really successful,
Or Aliens is another one.
Well, only Alien 2, really. Alien 1 and 2, really.
I think 3 was successful enough. Maybe critically,
but not the blockbuster.
The
blockbuster that they had hoped for,
Yeah, well, it's hard to top Aliens.
But look at, Star Wars or other films that were really successful.
I think
let's say the Jaws series. The Jaws 1, Jaws 2, Jaws 3, 3D.
I think the fact that they called it the Vampire Chronicles means that they had plans to.
They hoped, definitely. I'm sure they had options, and had prepaid in advance for the rights to make movies of the other films, so that they would have got them at a lower price in advance, as opposed to waiting until this film did so well that when they negotiated for the rights for the second and third, that they'd have to pay through the nose.
Yeah. I used to mix up River Phoenix and Christian Slater, so apparently I must not be the only one, because they swapped them in.
The interaction between Lewis and Lestat when he finds him went a little longer in the actual script. There was some things here, like, for example, there's an interaction where the next night Lewis comes into the house again, comes up the steps into the parlor, and he comes with a little parcel, right? So Lestat is still there. He does not look up from the thing. And Lewis opens the parcel and removes a small Watchman portable TV with earphones. And he turns it on. And there's a rock video with Madonna dancing. And
I
Lestat
totally don't
sits
remember
up,
that.
clasps it amazed. And Lewis says, "This is to blot out all the sounds that hurt you. Here." And he puts some extra batteries on the floor. I'm not making this up. This is in the script. I know it seems a little weird, he puts the earphones over Lestat's head, and he turns up the volume, and Lestat smiles in delight, and he begins to sway with the music. And that's pretty much it, And then it's
interesting.
And he starts singing like a virgin.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I kind of pay too much to Madonna.
I kind of wish that they had just let the interviewer go. Instead of this stuff,
and live as a human.
Instead of this stuff with Lestat at the end, I think was kind of it's a little corny.
Well, they had to bring Tom Cruise back into it. He's the one they paid all the money for.
Although he does say a line that is kind of like what everybody was thinking, right? I've been listening to that whining for centuries.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, that's kind of how everybody, especially in the book. I mean,
the movie. At this point in the movie, we all agree with you.
Yeah. Well, in the book, Louis was a real whiner too.
Yeah.
Especially even more so, I think, in the book than he was in the movie.
Yeah. In the script, Lewis actually attacks Malloy. Even though he says, I failed again, and, you think this is a cool thing to be. He bites the interviewer. Yeah, he gashes his blood, sucks it, and throws him on the floor. And then, he gets up and staggers out of the room. And then Lewis follows him.
Filmmakers decided to switch that, to let Louis not.
I think that was a good choice.
Yeah.
I think that was a good choice. Yeah.
Is it over?
He would bite him several times.
He's driving the car and fluffing his cuff.
Yeah.
What'd you think of the musical choice, here?
I think it's a great song. I wish they hadn't done the Guns N' Roses version of it, but
or the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, if they'd done the Rolling Stones, it would have been better.
Yeah, the original
edit Ghost over it.
Yeah.
The original script didn't even have Lestat showing up at the end. It would just be Malloy escaping Lewis after being bitten several times, getting in the car, listening to the interview a little bit, and smiling and going off and says, he hears Lewis's voice says, "Not 1791. That's when it happened. I was 24, younger than you are now." And then rock music rises. Rolling Stones, "I Can't Get No Satisfaction." And he just goes on into the desert highway, not the Golden Gate Bridge or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah. So fade out. The end. That would be it. I think this ending is much better.
It's more theatrical. It's more filmy.
Oh yeah, and it leaves the thing open for the second movie that never happened.
And San Francisco also the connection of Anne Rice having lived in San Francisco and written when her husband was actually the chairman of the school of poetry or something. He was a poet, and Nina actually has one of his hard book volume of poetry.
Yeah. And it brings it around, right? Because the it started out above the crowd, above the city.
Yeah,
and then moves in.
Point of view.
Yeah, but now it's doing the opposite, pulling away and going back up into the sky again.
To show us the sunrise.
Yeah.
Right.
Which makes you wonder what's going to happen to Lestat if he gets caught in rush hour.
Hopefully he has a convertible hard top that will go up.
Yeah.
He better learn how to drive fast.
He's going to have to pull over and get out the duct tape real quick and tape up all the windows.
Yeah.
Like they do in Near Dark, which is another great vampire movie.
Oh, yeah.
You can't
with
duct
Lance
tape the
Henriksen,
windshield, though.
who has a crossover with Hellraiser.
Oh, really? Yeah. But pretty amazing movie. I wish that they had kept it up. It would have been amazing to have like an entire, franchise of this, especially with this quality and production level. I mean, it's amazing.
But boy, is it hard to make a series of movies beyond 3 that are good. I mean, you think how many can you think of that have like 10 movies where they're all good?
Not
many.
10,
but like The Godfather is pretty good. I mean,
well,
4.
It's only 3.
Harry Potter, right? They managed to keep. I mean, it's not my favorite, but they did manage to keep up the quality.
All good though either. They're
I
not
don't
all
know.
Good.
I mean, I watched them all. I thought they're all okay, just to keep up with what people are talking about.
I haven't read the books or anything.
I only read the first book when I was a substitute teacher.
But I'm a big fan of special effects, and so the fact that Stan Winston's company was involved with this was very good for me. But one of the things I'll say about it is they say, that it's very subtle, the effects. There's only, like we were pointing out, there's only a handful of really, showstoppers, the scythe work, the burning of the girls, the cutting of the throat, okay, so there's a handful of those, right? And then actually there's a lot of other effects, but they're subtle. And they were saying to Stan Winston, like, this is going to be one of those movies where you may not get an Academy Award because a lot of people may not notice there were effects, because they're too subtle,
That's a good point.
But, I'm as an effects guy, as a tour de force, there's enough there for me on the plate, And
there's a lot of miniature work there, too, in the sets and the landscapes. There's a lot of stuff. Yeah. And Mark Crash McCreary, concept artist. Ryan, you found something about the death of Lestat when his throat is cut. You found like someone posted that in the Stan Winston's art school Facebook recently.
Right. I'm a member of the School of Character Arts, Stan Winston School of Character Arts. I've been taking, classes when I was sighted and everything. And they have on there some fantastic reference stuff. Like you can go there to their website and check out, like they'll have, little videos and, still photos from that period, showing those art pieces and stuff.
Going back to what you were saying before about this, movie franchises and stuff, I think if they had made this movie today, they would have made it a TV series. Instead of...
Well, there have been many vampire TV series.
I mean, the Vampire Diaries and all that stuff.
They've actually had one, I believe, called the Vampire Chronicles, too.
Yeah.
And the Vampire Diaries and Buffy and,
this
Angel.
stuff comes and goes in waves. I mean, right now we're still riding the zombie wave, which started years ago. I mean, with the Walking
Fear
Dead.
of the Walking Dead and the Walking Dead.
Which it's getting pretty old. It's getting to the point where it does seem like the whole zombie genre is a reanimated Walking Dead genre.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just can't get into that. It was fun a little bit, but then it just became like, when is this going to stop?
And that's the end of the credits.
You sound like a friend of mine that said that, zombies are played, man. But it was funny because it was happening, still in the early 2000s, he said that. And I was making a lot of money off zombie movie jobs. So throughout my career,
absolutely. Glad to be working,
was one of those guys that they even used to say, hey, Ed is the king of zombies,
Yeah, no, I mean, it's great to work. But, I mean, as an audience member, I myself personally just think, I'm done with zombies. Let's do something else. I didn't like exactly the underworld thing with the lichens and the vampires. There was a little too leathery, this is like techno music and all that stuff and guns and whatever. It's like, I'm not into that sort of like edgy, like vampires versus werewolves. I would like to see, I actually liked the Rick Baker, werewolf film.
American Werewolf
Hopkins. No, the one with Anthony Hopkins and Benicio del Toro, the Wolfman.
I didn't like this late '90s, early 2000s resurgence of these PG-13 action CGI action horror movies. Like, I, Frankenstein and Van Helsing and like you said, the underworld movies and stuff.
Or what about the Mummy? You know, those ones with Brendan Fraser.
Yes, I don't like those either.
Well, I like certain genres to be period as well. You know, I mean, I think that's
like
an integral
Hammer
part
horror,
of
stuff like that.
Yeah, I like the for example, the vampire movies to be gothic, you know, horror. I don't like the vampires to be like, oh, this is an entirely new society where vampires have taken over and they have giant warehouses full of people being bled.
Almost every movie has its own lore.
It's like you put technology into that. I'm like, you're kind of losing me. Or werewolves, like the werewolves are like. I mean the one that takes place in Paris.
American Werewolf in Paris.
Yeah, with the gangs of Parisian, like
which is a very CG werewolf.
I kind of like that a little bit, but it's also kind of like more of a dark comedy in a lot of places, and it's like not really a movie that I kind of feel immersed into. It's more like a fun romp thing. But like werewolves that take place in like, you know, the 19th century, werewolf movies like that, like Werewolf of London, or, you know, The Wolfman with Benicio del Toro and Anthony Hopkins, where you have this
or classic stuff like the Hammer.
When that period thing comes in there, it really makes it work for me. But that's just me. I mean, there's people who love the Underworld series. It made a lot of money.
What about those the two girls ones, you know, from Canada, the what were they called?
Ginger
Sausage
Snaps.
Sisters?
Ginger Snaps. Ginger Snaps 1 and 2, I think.
Yeah, that sort of made being a werewolf sort of like
a female werewolf.
It was. They sort of conflated that with the idea of menstruation and.
Right.
Sausage Sisters. Yeah.
You know, what's interesting is Mick Garris created a TV series that was the female werewolf of the Werewolf of London. Yeah, Werewolf of London. Female Werewolf of London.
Yeah, I've watched that movie.
And Mick Garris created that series.
Yeah.
Who's connected to Clive, you know, loosely. You know?
Sure. But I do like that period thing. I mean, in The Mummy, when you have a mummy that turns into an action film with Tom Cruise, you lost me there. I'm not, you know, and then
what do you think of like Cat People, or that one that Clive was in, you know, that Mick Garris was involved with too, that's the cat
Sleepwalkers.
People. Yeah, Sleepwalkers. What do you think of that sort of idea of a monster? A cat monster, sort of.
I liked it. I mean, I thought it was a trying to create a new kind of monster, which
like
worked.
A take on a werewolf in a way, you know.
Yeah, except it's more like a Cat People kind of thing. I mean, there's some definitely cheesy parts in that movie, you know, like the cop kebab scene and all that. But it's like I thought it was interesting. I mean, I didn't see it. You know, it was what it was. I mean. I'm not a huge fan. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm just
saying that as a genre trope, you know, like moving from werewolves to cat monster people, you know, it's like.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to see more the creation of more genres of more monsters that would be novel. I mean, the Japanese culture or the Chinese culture has a lot of stuff that could be, you know.
And like just the mythology of all the fiction, like Clive's, you know, like night breeds and you know, like tons of other creatures, you know, night breeds, and you know, like your game, you know, like I was going to ask you guys, like, you know, you mentioned like Exordirex and things like that, like you're using like Weave World, you know, like Joe, you're a
Eurythmic from the Second Dominion
from Weave World, right? You know,
I'm actually from the Magica. Eurythmics are from Exordirex. They're these.
But what about aren't you a seer kind?
No. That's Catalina's character is a seer kind.
So she's from Weave World. Okay.
Yeah, she's from the Weave World. She has a cousin there as well, and there's another character.
But I mean, God, look at the mythologies of all of that. I mean, you could there's so much. It's so rich, you know, the fictions of all these different people, you know.
Yeah, the only thing that I think is too much in certain parts of Clive's lore is that he makes such a diversity within the clans of his universe that it's hard to create a fixed, you know, there's lots of races and we know them superficially, but there's not an actual, like, it's more like a universe of things, right? Where everything's different. a lot of
it's not. There's not so much a bestiary, so to speak, or whatever.
It is really hard to pin down, and you know, which gives us a lot of freedom for our game. I mean, you know,
because you're the DM, you can do what you want, you know.
Right. Well, and when Joe goes through the D&D races and he goes, "I want to be a lizard man," I'm like, "Yeah, sure, you can be a Nightbreed then." You know.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's almost no limitations.
Or a crazy amorous peacock. What was that story you read? Crazy amorous peacock.
Cold Heart Canyon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And Brent's character in our Jericho 77 Squad game, he's a seagull that accidentally in the California Baja or the Mexican Baja ended up drinking some of that
the Nuncio.
Yeah. And so it became more evolved, like Raoul the Ape Man. So, yeah.
And is that kind of like how in Weaveworld there'll be people who are like shapeshifters and stuff?
No.
Can he go to human form?
No, he's just a seagull. He's a seagull who can talk and
Jonathan Livingston Seagull.
Yeah, that's his name.
No kidding.
Yeah. He was named by he had a human friend that gave him that name after the book.
That's funny. That's cool.
Anyway, yeah, guys. So I hope that you've enjoyed this commentary track, and it's always a great movie to revisit. The Interview with the Vampire. Now I want to watch Queen of the Damned because I haven't seen that. It had Aaliyah.
Who
she looked
tragically passed in an airplane accident.
I only watched it when it first came out, and my impression wasn't good back then. But I just bought it again, so I'll watch it too and see what I think.
I had the audiobooks of all of the Queen of the Damned and stuff like that. So, you know, I got to, when I was working in my workshop all the time, I would listen to audiobooks. And so I listened to Interview and Queen and, you know.
Yeah.
Also, the guy who was cast in Queen of the Damned as Lestat was originally cast in Lord of the Rings as Aragorn. And he ended up, you know, not working out. And they ended up putting in Viggo instead.
Huh.
Right. Who got replaced. Yeah,
well,
I think they only did like 4 days of shooting with him or something.
Jeez.
Something very short.
I've gotten the Vampire Lestat ebook as we were talking because I'm curious about that. And I'm going to go and buy myself a frilly shirt, guys.
All right. Well, coming next, we've got...
He was a low talker. I didn't want to wear the puffy shirt.
The Jerry Seinfeld one? Yeah.
Yep.
So coming next,
I can make you some fangs, Joe.
We've got more news, another news episode.
Coming up.
We'll be returning to Jericho Squad 77. We actually have referenced a dream that everyone shared, but we never actually included it in the game. So we're going to... That was kind of our episode 0, where everybody learned how the game worked. We'll put that up. And then we have our episode 300 Spectacular. So if you're out there listening and you want to join us, it's going to be a Zoom chat. So you can, and we've got an event on the Facebook page that you can click to join.
Yeah, wear party hats and, have cake.
Right. It's the night of the paper hat here. We're celebrating something.
I'm gonna be wearing something special.
Yeah.
And this
everyone is invited. Come, all are welcome.
And this vampire being immortal shall have no end.
All right.
And also remember, kids, have fun on the weekend, but don't drink the death blood.
Yeah,
unless it's from a rat, and then it's okay.
And if it's a mechanical rat,
gotta be fast. 5-second rule.
Yeah.
Use a switchblade.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have subscribed. You can find the Clive Barker Podcast wherever you find audio. Show notes for this episode, as well as news and reviews, can be found at our website at www.clivebarkercast.com. The Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial podcast and blog that is not affiliated with or under contract by Clive Barker or Seraphim Inc. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans. Watch for our annual Kickstarter fundraisers to get some cool stuff, and you can buy t-shirts on our TeePublic store. Go to tpublic.com and search for BarkerCast.
Thanks for listening.